Me, 24 male, with my girlfriend, 32 female, of 2 years, moved in 6 months ago, and I'm disgusted by a secret she's been keeping. She is, or was, a fantastic woman, and I'm in love with her. We have always been able to work out arguments and have a fantastic time together. She loves me, and we talked about marriage sometime soon. About 6 months ago, we decided to give moving in a try and see if we would be compatible living together. It was great until last weekend when I discovered something she's been keeping from me that is a deal breaker. She is a Nazi sympathizer. We are both Caucasian, but we both have a very diverse upbringing. She grew up without knowing her father and had a Hispanic stepfather and has a half-sibling from that marriage. I grew up in Sacramento and have a lot of friends of all races. Personally, I don't have a racist bone in my body, but clearly she does. She just doesn't know that I know. This is what I know and how I know it. She let me use her laptop last weekend because mine was being repaired. I needed to research something for work, and either she wanted me to see this or she forgot about it. She left for work and had left up a browser, and it was on some weird blog full of racist rants. I was trying not to jump to conclusions, but my curiosity, snooping, got the best of me, and I looked at her history and bookmarks. What I saw was mortifying, and I felt physically ill. I've had a week to process this, and I know that I need to bring it up, but I just don't know how. This very well could be the end of the relationship. Part of me hopes that she's interested in what these kinds of people think, but how likely is that? It's wrong on so many levels, and I don't see myself with someone like this. Has anyone ever been in a similar situation, and how did you handle it? Please help. In the comments, Tealise says, if she hasn't given you any indication prior to this in word or action, then giving her the benefit of the doubt seems reasonable. I search for all sorts of weird shit. Thanks, Reddit, that might need an explanation if someone went snooping. Ask her about it, but try not to be too accusatory when you do. Even if she does have those leanings in her mind, she obviously knows they're wrong if you haven't had a sign of them before now. I was at an academic conference a few years back, and a group of collegiate researchers presented on language use in neo-Nazi and white supremacist internet forums. I can only imagine what all of their internet histories looked like. If you've never really gotten any kind of indication of this before, there's probably a super reasonable explanation. I'd bring it up casually and honestly. Hey, remember how you let me use your laptop? You left up this weird site, and it kinda threw me off. And see where it goes from there. That's a perfectly acceptable thing to say when faced with something like this. OP replies, she has never indicated she has a racist bone in her body. I think that might be why I'm concerned with bringing it up and just want to get an idea of how I should approach this. Thank you for the advice. Honestly, sometimes I go on forums that disgust me. It's cathartic to get a good rage going. If someone saw my history, they'd be a bit put off. I think it really depends on her reaction when you talk to her, but I certainly wouldn't split while she's at work and go no contact without so much as a conversation. OP says, I don't have enough evidence to just split like that. If she had a hidden room with Nazi-related items, and it was a fact at that point, I might go no contact, as I know how dangerous of a person she might be. But I just have bookmarks and browsing history, so I owe her a conversation at the very least. Sometimes I read the red pill out of morbid curiosity. Whenever I read about a weird fetish or problem on here, I usually Google it. It's mortifying to imagine what someone might think of my search history. However, if she keeps visiting those pages over a long period of time, that suggests something more. Most people would find that material so disgusting that they couldn't stand to look at it more than once. So if she keeps returning to those sites, there's probably a reason. You need to talk to her and do your best to find out what she honestly thinks about non-white people. You might want to probe her views about persistent inequality. If she gets defensive and insists that she's not racist, but doesn't have a good explanation for being on the sites. Obscurity Knox says, do you have proof that she sympathizes with these groups, or is she just browsing? I've gone through phases of intense research of groups that I don't necessarily agree with, but I want to learn more about. For example, my brother is one of those doomsday prepper types who collects as many guns and as much ammo as possible and is preparing for some sort of apocalypse. I don't have cable TV, so I know nothing about these people, and I want to learn about where he's coming from. Not that I want to be a doomsday prepper myself, I just want to understand his perspective. From my browser history, it might look to my husband that I'm getting ready to have a bomb shelter built in the backyard, complete with a full-on arsenal and a few years' worth of food. OP replies, "All I have is her browsing history and bookmarks. I could snoop in her personal stuff, but that just seems like a bad idea and would really hurt our relationship if she has a good reason to have this kind of history on her computer. I think I'm just going to have a talk to her about it this weekend and see if this is something that we can get around. Hell, I'd rather her be a shitty troll that's just on the sites trolling them. At least I can work with her on that, but racism has no room in my life." I don't know. Red flags for this one. I don't like where this is going. I know that there's only an 8-year age gap as well, but a 24-year-old and a 32-year-old and then this comes up? I don't know about that one, Chief. Let's look back 2 years. It was a 22-year-old and a 30-year-old. Just like the differences in where you are in life and maturity, and then throw a bit of anti-Semitism in there, a bit of Nazi sympathizing. The fact that she has these in her tabs, maybe a little history of some research is fine, but bookmarks? Why are you bookmarking 4chan? You really need to speedrun your way with those bookmarks? That is a bit sus to me, personally. And now, onto the update. Hey Reddit, thanks for all the advice. I did what almost everyone suggested, and talked to her. I chose to speak with her about this on Saturday night, and this is how the conversation went to the best of my memory. I said, "Hey, do you remember how you let me use your computer the other day? You left some weird site up. What was that all about?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, it was on some blog with a lot of weird racist stuff." And she says, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Okay, well, what about all the bookmarks and history? There is at least a month's worth of similar blogs. She replies, "Why the F were you snooping through my history?" And I say, "Well, I think I have a right to know if I'm dating a racist." She blew up on me at this point and yelled for a good 10 minutes about how I invaded her trust. Then the bombshell. She admitted to being a Nazi sympathizer. She tried to justify it by saying she's affected by all of the immigrants coming to the US and stealing jobs and some other shit that you would only think was funny watching it on South Park. I could have debated her about it, but I was just kind of taken aback by it all, and I don't know if it would have made a difference. This intelligent person has let hate fill her heart. I thought I would give her one more chance to see if there would be ever a way to get past this, and I asked her if she would see a therapist and see where this hate stems from. Maybe then we can help her recover from whatever brainwashing has happened to her. She told me that her views were not a problem and nothing a whack job therapist says will change her views. As I stated with everyone else here, this is a deal breaker for me, and I'm sure 99.9% of you posters would agree. At least I hope. I explained that I can't respect her views, and I have no respect for how she's choosing to live, and I can be no part of it. I left that night with my basics, and I'm staying in a hotel. I plan on getting my stuff out this week, and I already have an apartment lined up. In the meantime, she's still trying to force her views on me and sending me links to the garbage she is spewing. As soon as I have all my stuff, I will go no contact and find a loving, good person to spend my life with in time. I'm more angry right now than anything else. I feel sad, yes, but not as much as I would have thought. Well, there's that for an update. I doubt that I'll update again, as I'm just going to cut this negative person out of my life completely. Thanks for the advice that I needed to talk to her. I just wish that I could have been wrong, and you guys were right about her just being interested in the viewpoints of the asinine neo-Nazi culture crap. In the comments, Ed LV says, "Good for you. It's a lot better you realized this now than doing so after getting married and having kids with her. Although I'm surprised that none of her views ever came out during your 2-year relationship. In my experience, people like that have a really hard time keeping their extreme views hidden." OP replies, Yeah, part of me thinks that this is a recent thing, and leaving the browser up was a way to let me know her views. If that's the case, I'm glad she did it. Now I know that we aren't compatible and never will be. If she thinks there's nothing wrong with her views, why is she hiding them from her boyfriend? Totally nuts. OP says, good question. I'm sure there's a bigger issue here, but she doesn't want help from a therapist, so I am moving on. Honestly, her views on therapy alone would be enough of a deal breaker for me. Maybe in America. You might be surprised to find out that therapy still has a significant stigma in many other places around the world. As a non-American, I'm often surprised at the casual ease with which Americans talk about their therapists. I will be forever grateful that, like OP, I grew up in Sacramento, one of the most diverse areas of the US. Racists don't start out hateful, they start out ignorant of other cultures, and that ignorance and fear of difference breeds hate. Growing up here, I knew someone from every ethnic group, and I can easily fit in anywhere. Huge advantage in my life. I was actually just talking about this with a friend. I also grew up in Sacramento, and I didn't realize other places weren't that diverse until adulthood, and I was in school in the 90s. I'm sure it's far more diverse now than it was then. Yeah, not sure what to say about that one besides good riddance that she outed herself like that. And yeah, why was she keeping it a secret from OP if she wasn't ashamed? Many questions with very little answers. Here's hoping that you find someone that fits much better into your life, OP, that isn't a walking piece of shit. Congratulations on the dead weight being lost. 27 female accused of baby trapping my 28 male fiancé when my tubes are tied? I had an argument with my fiancé this morning. We've been dating for 2 years, engaged since September, and for the most part, everything has been going well. We've been planning a quiet backyard ceremony so that we can save up for a house instead. We've been communicative and managed to get through fights in the past, but this takes the cake. He's been evasive for the past 2 weeks about the wedding or any future plans that we've made, and I basically had to corner him this morning before leaving for work to ask him what's going on. It turns out while he was dog-sitting for his uncle early in February, they had a chat that stuck with him. When they were talking about life and how things have been, his uncle admitted that he resented his ex-wife for baby trapping him, and now he's divorced while his ex-wife is dating again, and my fiancé's cousin is an entitled asshat who terrorized him when they were both teenagers. Turns out it's been sitting in his mind. He says that he thinks I'm about to spring a pregnancy announcement on him and trap him in the marriage. This is despite the fact that he knows that I don't want kids. I basically raised my siblings and lost out on my childhood. I told him about not wanting kids when we first started dating. We were both on the same page, and I've asked him about getting a vasectomy in the past, which is why it's surprising that he thinks that I'm trying to baby trap him. The thing is, the first chance I got, which still took a long time, I got my tubes tied. I literally can't get pregnant. I reminded him of this fact, and that made him go really quiet. He didn't even apologize or say anything, so I told him that if he's going to act like this over a made-up issue in his head, I don't know how much I'd trust him in a real crisis. Now I'm wondering if I was too harsh and what steps we can take to move forward, or if I'm the right amount of angry and I should just end it. I have no idea what to do right now. In the comments, quote, he says that he thinks I'm about to spring a pregnancy announcement on him and trap him in the marriage. I'm confused. You stated that this man intends on marrying you, right? You're engaged? Baby trapping is when someone intentionally gets pregnant using methods like deception to keep their partner from leaving the relationship. Does he actually intend on marrying you? Quote, I literally can't get pregnant. I reminded him of this fact, and that made him go really quiet. He didn't even apologize or say anything. I would demand a response from him. His words and behaviors are a red flag. I would postpone the wedding until the relationship is in a better place. Maybe this needs to be addressed with a counselor. OP replies, the only reason I didn't drag a response from him is that I would have been late for work and I have a meeting I couldn't miss. But if he doesn't have a response when I get home, I'm definitely going to call off the wedding, if not the relationship. His uncle sounds like a real winner, misogyny at its finest. Why is he afraid of getting trapped into marriage when he's literally planning a wedding with you? Like, the hell? Marriage also isn't a trap. Anyone can leave at any time, regardless of whether there is kids. And the fact that he forgot your tubes were tied? Is he dumb? You sound the right amount of angry to me. Personally, I'd be hesitant to marry someone who was so easily swayed by his sexist uncle that you're somehow trying to kick him into a life of misery. On top of that, he's been dwelling on this for 2 weeks and never once communicated what was going on with him. He just completely checked out until you forced it out of him. I'm not sure that I'd want to marry anyone who A, thinks marriage is a trap for men, B, let his uncle convince him that you're just like his ex-wife in one conversation, C, can't communicate or apologize, D, surrounds himself with such shitty male role models, and E, doesn't understand how tied tubes work. OP replies, I think this is exactly my problem. I don't know if he thinks I would deliberately ruin my life just to mess his up, or I've been lying since I met him. I don't want to make a knee-jerk decision, but I'm seriously reconsidering this relationship. Why is your fiancé worried that he'll be trapped in a marriage? Maybe don't get married? OP says, I don't even know. Maybe he thinks that he'd be trapped with a child that can't exist. Based on how you've described him in some other comments, is he mentally challenged in some way, or what's the deal? OP says, he's not. He's a smart guy, but he's weak when it comes to social influence. At best, he's impressionable. At worst, he can be somewhat spineless. I thought that he had improved a lot over the past couple of years, but I guess I was wrong. Yeah, I'm just going with this guy's a complete idiot, and you're more than welcome to marry him if you want to, but he may just continue to get impressed by these people. He will get challenged by these idiots in his life. Unless you can stamp it out right now and make sure that it doesn't happen again, and trust him on it not happening again, then it will repeat, potentially with even more serious consequences and accusations in the future. How have you progressed this far in your relationship where he is now your fiancé, and then he springs something insane on you like this, where he should know that it's illogical from the get-go? I personally would start doubting that relationship, because yes, of course, you can work on these things, but he's so convinced, he is so convicted in his belief here that it's like, I don't know, man, what else is there in store in the future that you're just not going to believe me? You're going to believe people that are less important than me in this relationship. You're not going to do some critical thinking. You're not going to give me, your partner, the benefit of the doubt. It's always going to be their word against mine. That's not something I personally would want to sign up for. And now, onto the updates. We broke up. It's been an exhausting week, both at home and work. Basically, we're not engaged anymore. He's moving back to his parents, and our relationship is over while he works on himself. He wasn't cheating, nor was there a secret baby on the side. Half a yes to him having second thoughts, half yes to him being influenced by family and friends. I won't go too much into the details, just that his uncle's family were always awful to him. They were always the go-to babysitters, and he has trouble standing up to that generation of his family. He's impressionable, and he has trouble separating fact from fiction because of that and them. Another factor is that one of his formerly child-free friends announced that his wife is pregnant during New Year's, and he's been excited about it. My ex-fiancé is wondering if he would change his mind, especially since his parents do want to have grandchildren and have been asking if we're going to wait before having them. After dog-sitting for his uncle, apparently all that combined in his mind that I changed my mind and I would surprise him about it, which is the core of the matter for me. Whether he forgot that I had my tubes tied doesn't matter. He was projecting his fears, anxiety, and trauma onto me and punishing me for something that I didn't even do or say, and then made me out to be a deceptive partner because of that projection. He stopped trusting me because he was afraid of what the warped version he built up in his mind might do. That wasn't okay, and that is why I ended it. He's been moving his stuff out all week, and he told me that he's going back into therapy. His parents will be there to help him, and they separately apologized to me. They had no idea how bad his anxiety is. I'll be there to support him as a friend, and I've been trying to say that it's on pause, but typing this out also makes me realize that no matter what, I wouldn't be able to win against those fears, nor can I trust him to ever really fully trust me against them, assuming he ever did. Thank you for your input, Reddit. Some of the thoughts did help me steer the conversation, but ultimately it still boiled down to a broken trust, and I don't think that we're coming back from that. In the comments, Reality Junkie says, I would just cut all contact with him once he's moved out. Don't stay on as his friend. That never works. He needs to deal with his own issues on his own, and you deserve to be able to heal from this relationship and move on with your life. Right? I wouldn't even support him as a friend. What he did was awful. OP, his family is there to provide for him. Let him depart so you can carry on without him. Put some effort into getting better and moving on from this. Now it's not your responsibility to help him. OP says, yeah, I don't think I'll stay friends for long with him, but a lot of our circles overlap, and I don't want to lose friends over this yet. You can stay friendly without being friends, i.e., don't involve yourself in his mental health treatment, don't call to check on him and all that stuff. But if you are both invited to a mutual friend's event, just smile and say hello when you see him, and talk about the weather or something, and then move on. This really reminds me of my ex and how he ended up with wedding planning. OP definitely made the right decision. It's honestly odd how people's anxiety can manifest into self-sabotage. My friend's boyfriend broke up with her after getting accepted into med school. He was anxious and worried of his life path that he figured he wouldn't be able to make time for her. Ended up preemptively cutting ties with her cause of it. Came crawling back 2 weeks later, Lamau. They're engaged now, so go them. So he didn't want to be baby-trapped, but also wanted a child? He definitely needs a therapist and to not be in a relationship until he actually knows what he wants. I think he realized that he might want to baby-trap her, and then projected those fears because he can't handle potentially shameful feelings. In order to other the feeling, he had to have an other person to put that on. Yeah, it definitely sounds like a case of his priorities changed in his mind and he was envious of other people that had changed their minds with family, and him forgetting that she had her tubes tied was just an excuse. I feel like he couldn't roll with the story unless he pretended to forget that she had her tubes tied. And that level of mental gymnastics is yet, for me, another red flag, because what are you doing? You're trying so hard when you could just say, hey, let's have a discussion over this. I've been having thoughts recently that I've changed my mind on kids, and I know that's a deal breaker for you. Let's go to therapy so we can work this out together. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not mature enough to do that. Instead, it's easier to break this relationship by projecting my insecurities onto you, and then you can break up with me, and then I don't have to do any of that mental stress, and I can be the good guy at the end of the day because you're the crazy one. And then my family's all gonna agree, oh, of course she was trying to baby trap you. She could have adopted in the future, and imagine what that would have done to you. Regardless, congratulations on getting out of the relationship, OP, and yeah, it does seem like that friendship, quote-unquote, will be a slow burn to no contact, and good luck. Our next post is by a deleted user, titled, Husband Kicked the Door In. My husband, 29 male, and I, 30 female, have always had our issues. He has always had an anger problem. I never had a huge issue with it, considering he used to be easy to calm down. Our past couple of arguments have changed things, though. Putting aside the fact that he's a narc, not quick to pull the narc card. If you want examples and evidence, ask, don't belittle me. He's become angry. A few months ago, I tried to walk away to get some space, and he picks me up and tries to hold me there. Now this argument, he kicked the bathroom door in. When I tried to tell him how not okay that was, he said he's just who he is. Now, 2 days later, he wants to talk, and I still don't even know what to say. I grew up watching my mother get whooped on, so I'm aware of the signs of DV, so please don't tell me to get out or divorce right the hell now. I'm looking for help in this instance right now. He wants to talk, and I don't even have the words. Am I wrong to say that I don't think there's anything more to talk about? In the comments, Lizzie Oates says, quotes, "I'm aware of the signs of DV, so please don't tell me to get out." Does this mean that you're working towards getting out or divorcing? Well, that's the plan until he accidentally kills you. You have so much life to live without being in fear. It sounds like his anger is escalating and he is no longer easy to calm down. You know how this story will end. He wasn't like that in the beginning, he only hits me sometimes, he's always sorry and says he won't do it again. He destroyed property to get to you. Make a plan, stay safe, and move. I am very concerned that you don't want advice on how to leave safely. He is escalating, and this never ends well for the woman, and it can also end the lives of the children. Please seek assistance from your local women's refuge or helpline. Leaving is the most dangerous time, so seek support. She's looking for any answer that isn't the only answer, and she knows that answer but doesn't want to accept it, so she's reaching for anything other than that answer. It is so common in these situations that I could write a book on it. You know this is DV. You know it's escalating. You know he is gaslighting you a few days after. You know he doesn't respect and care about your feelings. You know he doesn't care if he scares you or the kids, damaging personal property out of anger to incite fear. You know this is DV. You grew up with DV. You need to separate and file for divorce. This is absolutely not fixable, and you know that too. It doesn't matter that he wants to talk. Not a single bit. Of course he will be sorry, and probably really meant it. He probably doesn't like this about himself either, but he cannot stop. He cannot even stop to love you. He cannot even stop knowing that he is severely harming the kids by them witnessing this. He won't stop, it will just escalate. You don't need any words. There are no words that can fix this. So don't worry about finding the right words. It will escalate when you try to leave or mention it's over. It is a dangerous situation. You know this also, but your brain can hardly believe it, so you try to convince yourself differently. If you cannot find a way to love yourself enough to leave, love your kids enough. He is doing lifelong damage. He already has, and it's not fixable. You staying contributes to damaging them. Don't do that. Leave for them. The younger they are when you leave, the better. I'm so sorry, but don't wait. Don't justify. Don't try to understand why he is the way he is. You never will, and neither will he. And it doesn't matter anyway. You don't need to understand it to take action. Good luck. Yeah, what an absolutely terrifying situation to be a part of here, and OP, if you're looking to be on the next episode of True Crime about how your husband killed you and the kids because you stayed despite all the warnings, be my guest, but that sounds absolutely like where this is headed. He is not safe to be around. Please leave. And now, onto the update. Just so no one worries, I was making dinner and feeding the kids. I entertained the idea of his talk. It went something like this. He says, "What's wrong?" And I just stare at him, and he says, "Is this about the door thing? Is that what this is about?" And I say, "Kind of." Didn't even get to finish, and he was already on to the, "Are you serious? I understand that was out of line." And this fool said, "I'm sorry, but after 10 years of marriage, you know what gets me that way." I didn't say anything else, so naturally he got more mad and walked away. I think he's sleeping. I haven't cared to look. After I get my kids in bed, I'm pouring some wine, Googling divorce lawyers, and making calls tomorrow. For those of you who were blunt but somewhat kind, thank you. Seeing this go on and having it happen to you for the first time is wildly different, so I apologize for coming off cross and/or ignorant despite trying to say, I know what's happening. I appreciate some of y'all's understanding, but firm suggestions. In the comments, Chaos Flame Member says, "It's just who I am. Doesn't count if you're harming people verbally, emotionally, physically. I hope OP gets herself and her kids out of there. If this is who you are and not what you do, the more of a reason to get away as soon as possible." I'm just a guy who kicks indoors while I'm mad. Deal with it. Cool. I'm just someone who won't live with a door kicker in her. It's just who I am now. And if I did, you deserved it. Classical narcissist. Look what you made me do. Never marry a cop. It's early here, and I don't have my glasses on, but did I miss her saying he's a cop? I skimmed it a couple more times and still didn't see it. That being said, definitely agree that marrying a cop could be a very bad thing. Literally, the only man I was ever frightened of was a coworker at the time. Other times, I got angry because my fight, flight, freeze, fawn instincts lean heavily towards fight. He's a cop now. Our next post is by user Undercover Regit, titled, "Am I the asshole here for freezing out my wife after she told people that having sex with me does nothing for her?" For context, we, male 56 and female 47, have been together for 26 years, married for over 20 years, one child. We always try to make the most out of our weekends together, and yesterday was no exception. We had a day out, shopping, and food, then met up with acquaintances for a few drinks before heading home. The subject got around to relationships and how to keep the flame burning. One of the younger women asked my wife how to keep sex enjoyable after being with the person for so long. She says, "I don't know. Having sex with OP does nothing for me since our child, 18, was born." There was an awkward silence, and people started making excuses to leave. Traveling home, mostly in silence, I asked her if she thought that that was an appropriate comment and that I wanted her to apologize. As per usual, she doubled down and blamed me for being too sensitive. Since then, there has been no communication. OP, it sounds like there hasn't been communication for 18 years. In the comments, Dark Mode Knows Win says, "Have you asked your wife how she would feel if you had said something similar answering that question?" This part, that was extremely hurtful to say about your partner and in the company of others. This is extremely hurtful to say about an ex-partner in the company of others. OP's wife needs a reality check that other people have feelings. I have a story. I was at a bar with a buddy and his girlfriend. They were arguing lightly while we were watching the Giants spoil the Patriots' undefeated season. It was probably one of the best football games of the 2000s, so she wasn't getting 100% attention from anyone. That pissed her off, so she starts in with the classless, small dick insults anyone within 15 feet could hear. I've never been so embarrassed to be sitting next to such a trashy person in my life. I always lead with, "How would you have felt if... ... Takes it from looking like you're defensive to an honest conversation. Some people really do operate on the idea of, it's different if it happens to them. Hopefully this wife has at least a little empathy. What do you do to the not insignificant amount of people who would unironically say some bullshit like, "Me? Yeah, I would have taken things as a joke and not be so sensitive like you," with a straight face? And that's the difference between wanting to solve problems and wanting to win fights. A wife publicly stating that she hasn't been sexually satisfied by her husband for 18 years without ever mentioning it to him is not a fight. It's a potentially marriage-ending revelation. Obviously, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but all we have to go on is OP's description. While I agree there's a good chance that would also solve a problem when he treats her exactly as she has him, and she just learns how shitty it is from the other side. Nobody gets taught a lesson in real life. In real life, they double down or get further insulted and then make an internal pact to try and make you unhappy for the rest of forever. Correct. In the history of the world, there has never been a person who treats others like shit to start that has changed their behavior upon being treated like shit in return. Not the asshole. It's pretty messed up to broadcast things like that in public. If she is dissatisfied with her sex life, she should discuss it with you in private. She should have discussed it in private 18 years ago. It would have been a gut punch to hear without it being in front of friends. The thought that she would call you oversensitive to hear that in front of friends is incredibly callous. You have to consider that the only possible explanation is that she doesn't give a shit about him, his feelings, and that she probably got a kick out of humiliating him in public. And she is so idiotic to not realize that saying something like that in front of other people reflects so much more in her than it does him. That group of people do not think highly of her anymore, if they ever did. This is so true, OP. We were friends with a couple, a longtime friend of my husband's, and the wife treated him like dirt. I thought she was awful, putting him down, treating him like she was better than him, belittling, and he was always very nice, kind, supportive. I never thought badly of the husband, but thought the wife was horrible. Sometimes it's hard for the belittled one to realize what's actually being done to them until someone addresses it for them. I dated a girl who was so sweet at home, but treated me like dirt in front of people. I'd bring it up on the way home and she'd apologize, saying, I didn't mean anything by it, etc. We visited my best friend's parents one Christmas Eve, and it didn't click for me until he brought it up a few days later that she called me an asshole in front of everyone there, including his parents, wife, and kids, because I didn't put the ottoman that I was using for my plate in front of her so she could put her feet up. It was like, oh, that's not normal, and other people see it when I was just used to it. She just admitted that the past 18 years have had meaningless sex for her. Not sure if you can recover from that one, ever. Not the asshole. He should have said, I agree, it's become more of an obligation. The enjoyment has left the building. We can be certain that would end their sex life completely. It's obvious that she doesn't care about sex at all and just does it because she feels she has to. She'd love if he didn't care about it also. She would jump at the chance to just cross that off her to-do list forever. The problem there is that even kind of obligation sex, as long as it's not forced, it's willing and not unpleasant, is still shown to be generally good for a relationship. It keeps a lot of other forms of intimacy alive too. Flirting, kissing, cuddling, all those good things. If sex goes away, so does the rest. My ex said something to the effect of how she'd be happier if we never had penetrative sex again. I was also fine with that, for a variety of reasons that I'll distill down to saying that I now identify as a-spec. So while our normal, everyday physical affection, cuddling, hugging, kissing, etc., and non-penetrative sex, me giving oral specifically, remained unchanged, I stopped having penetrative sex with her. Not even 3 full months later, she was mad at me because we weren't screwing anymore. I brought up her prior statement about penetrative sex, and she haughtily informed me that A, she said it just to hurt me, B, I wasn't supposed to take her seriously, and C, a real man would have ignored her and not gotten so butthurt about some small silly shit like that. In hindsight though, it was just another power game where it mattered exactly F all what I did. I was just going to be wrong about it the next time she wanted to fight, no matter how I would respond. Immediate goodbye, thanks for playing. And now, on to the updates. She has said that she meant penetrative sex means nothing to her as she is unable to orgasm that way since childbirth. That is not what she said in public. I knew there was an issue, bought the equipment/balls to help her tighten up, but they were never used. Sex would consist of a lot of foreplay, oral, and occasionally toy play. This would give her 3 or 4 orgasms before penetration. I thought she enjoyed the intimacy. I don't guilt her into sex. When we had our child, I waited 10 months before we resumed physical intimacy. I'm not going to insult her to make myself feel better. 2 wrongs make it a hell of a lot worse. She has tried to blame the comment on the menopause. She is perimenopause, and the few drinks that she had, but I'm not buying it. That's an excuse, not an apology. I'm not the typical Scotsman. No deep-fried Mars bars for me. I do a physical job and run 5K every second day. I was a 32-inch waist when we married, and I'm a 34-inch waist 20-odd years later. To be truthful, I'm feeling shock, shame, embarrassment, and emasculated. I can't ever imagine being intimate with her again. Am I the asshole for calling my father's wife a creep? My 32 female, father, 60s, has been married to Sasha, fake name, 40s, for almost a decade. I was already an adult when they started seeing each other, so I never had much of a relationship with her. That said, Sasha was nice and thoughtful, though a bit annoying at times, and I never had any problems with her. I now have a husband, 34 male, and 2 kids, 9 male and 4 female. Sasha is very fond of my children, especially my daughter. That became very suffocating very quickly, so we started setting some boundaries, and she never overstepped them. In January, my father and Sasha decided to go on a trip to Disney World and invited us to join them. We decided to go to celebrate our son's 9th birthday. I quickly regretted coming along. Sasha spent the entire trip fussing over my daughter in ways that overstepped almost every boundary that we had set. Examples include, Sasha bought a mini ears tiara. She wanted me to buy my daughter an identical one so they could match. My daughter didn't like the tiara, so I bought her a Donald Duck hat instead. Sasha got her the tiara anyway, and was upset that she didn't want to wear it. My father and Sasha went shopping in between parks. I told them not to buy my kids anything, as we still had shopping to do and didn't want to risk making our bags too heavy. Still, Sasha returned with 5 bags of clothing for my daughter and 2 for my son, saying she couldn't resist it. My daughter wanted a Belle costume to wear at the parks, as that's her favorite princess. Sasha tried to convince her to get an Ariel costume instead, because that's her favorite. I explained that we never watched The Little Mermaid at home because my daughter is scared of Ursula. Sasha insisted on taking dozens of pictures with my daughter in front of the castle at Magic Kingdom. She also took some with my son, but not nearly as many. She tried to convince us to take our daughter to Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. We refused because the prices are crazy and we'd already bought her the Belle costume. She offered to pay, but we held our ground. I later found out that Sasha tried to make a reservation anyway, but there was no availability. When we took our daughter to Slinky Dog Dash, her first roller coaster, Sasha tried to sit next to her. My daughter wanted to sit with me, so we switched. She tried to do the same thing in other attractions. At the Muppets Theater, she tried to get my daughter to sit in her lap. Sasha also tried to pick her up while we met some of the characters. There were more instances. The final straw for me, however, was the last park day of the trip. We were at Magic Kingdom. My husband suffered a minor injury, and I had to take him to the first aid station. The kids wanted to go to the Peter Pan ride, so my dad and Sasha offered to take them in the meantime. However, according to my father, the line was too long. So instead, Sasha suggested the Little Mermaid ride, assuring my kids that Ursula wasn't on it. Actually, there's a pretty big Ursula animatronic there. My daughter was still sobbing and hugging her brother when we reunited. When we flew back home, I told my father that we would no longer take our children on trips with Sasha due to her behavior. He got extremely angry. He said his wife loved my kids, thought about what they'd like to do at every moment of the trip, and that we should be grateful to have her in our lives. I lost my temper at that. I told him Sasha was an effing creep, and that they should be grateful that I was still okay with them even seeing my children after her actions during the trip. We ended up having a huge fight after that. It's been weeks since we returned home, and my father is still angry at me and my husband. Sasha has texted me a few times. She says she's sorry if she made me uncomfortable, but that she loves my kids and hoped to use the trip to spend more time with them. To be honest, I don't think I'm the asshole here, but I do think that I might have overreacted. I believe there's a chance that Sasha's actions were motivated by love, and she truly did have good intentions. Am I the asshole? In the comments, Significant Cat 3 says, "Not the asshole. You set some pretty clear boundaries that Sasha kept crossing the entire trip. Even your daughter seems to not be particularly receptive towards her. Also, your son can probably pick up on this favoritism, and that's not good for him either. I don't mean to do armchair psychology, but this reads like Sasha has always wanted a young daughter and is using yours to live vicariously through. Hence why she kept trying to push things that your daughter doesn't like onto her. Tiara, Little Mermaid ride, etc. OP says, "My son doesn't like Sasha. I'm not sure why, but I think he gets that she favors my daughter. He's also very protective of his sister, so her discomfort could also be a reason. He definitely can. When I was 5, I could tell my grandma favored my younger sister. Not to mention, it was his birthday, and his sister was getting loads of attention and presents. It'd be hard for him not to notice. At least he has the maturity to understand that it's not his sister's fault. OP replies, I will say that he got more birthday presents than his sister got, Disney souvenirs. But no thanks to Sasha. When they gave him one of those happy birthday buttons, Sasha tried to ask for an extra one for my daughter so that she wouldn't feel left out. I asked for a first visit one instead, but that was how Sasha behaved during his birthday. To get this out of the way, you were not the asshole. What really stood out for me in that last bit was, it was your son comforting your daughter and not your father, nor is the woman who traumatized your daughter in the first place. Their lack of compassion is appalling. Your son, though, is an absolute gem of a big brother and as a human being. Kudos to you and your hubby for raising such a great kid. I'm sure his sister is just as great. OP replies, both my kids are fantastic, but my son is an amazing brother. My daughter worships the ground he walks on, so I'm almost certain she went to him for comfort without considering my father and Sasha. It wouldn't be the first time. Not the asshole. She sounds exhausting, but she also doesn't seem like a truly awful person. Quote, so we started setting some boundaries and she never overstepped them. Question, does she have children of her own? She probably sees your kids as a chance to play mummy if she's never had kids. She may not even be aware of exactly how intrusive she's being. Looks like there's a 20-year age gap between she and your dad. She probably thought that she'd be okay with not having kids. I'm guessing your dad may have told her that he's done having babies, but your little ones, especially your daughter, may have just stirred up those feelings, and she's trying to compensate. I still don't think you're the asshole, but maybe have an honest talk with her, just you and her, and try and show a little grace. My apologies if you've done all that already and she's still being a pill. OP replies, you're right about a lot of things. She doesn't have kids, my dad doesn't want more children, and while she's defined herself as child-free before, she's also told me that she'd always wondered what having a daughter would be like. My husband and I started setting boundaries because the situation was really bad when my daughter was younger. She'd wake her up from her naps when she visited, post pictures of her on social media without our approval, and complain about almost every parenting decision we'd make because it wasn't how she would do it. This makes so much sense now. You just have to be honest with both Sasha and your dad and tell him that your daughter isn't her surrogate child that she can live vicariously with. You're not the asshole because you have your children's best interests at heart, but it may benefit you and your dad's relationship to understand why Sasha is like she is. Overstepping boundaries is easier for someone when they believe that it's for a good cause or to have fun in a safe way. Does she have kids of her own? Can she not have kids of her own? Does she maybe see the kids as her grandkids? It's a difficult one, but getting to the source of that could make the whole thing healthier. But on the other hand, it's not your job to put that work in when it's your father's relationship. All I'd suggest you do is explain to your father that you set boundaries, and regardless of intention, Sasha broke them, which you do not condone. Good luck. OP replies, Sasha does not have children of her own. My father has me and my sister, and has always been open about not wanting more kids. They're married, so I'm assuming she doesn't want kids either. I also don't think she sees my kids as grandchildren. She's always referred to herself as Aunt Sasha instead. When I got pregnant with my son, she commented she was too young to be a grandma. I saw a TikTok the other day about a grandmother opening up about her being too involved in her grandchildren's lives to the point where she recognized that she was overbearing with her grandchildren when it came to the relationship that she was supposed to be maintaining with her child instead. She framed it as a way like, fix those relationships and those mistakes that you made as a parent with your child first, because that's the more important relationship that you want to have there. Where this situation varies is that Sasha never had those kids and never had that shot, really, of being the grandma and having her own kids. I could kind of give, a biological grandma a little bit of a pass to be like, she's just excited, but this situation's really weird to me. All these things that you had to set boundaries for should never have even been a thing in the first place. What was she doing being so involved with that child, waking them up from a nap and posting them on social media? And just dumping all of her wants and needs on this child? It's just so wrong in so many ways. Even from the get-go, with her waking up a child from their naps and posting on social media, I'd be like, stop. If you do anything like this again, you're not touching these kids or going near them. That's freak behavior. What are you doing? Do you not have a brain? All that to say, I think that OP was right and not the asshole for calling father's wife a creep. He is defending his wife's behavior. He's had kids before. He should know what it's like. How would he feel if it was his mother with a weird creep husband coming in and doing all this stuff to his kids, you know? He's not putting himself in your shoes. All he's seeing is his wife and, oh my god, I'm going to step away from everything and make sure that she's happy. And now, onto the update. Hey everyone, I'm ready to give you an update. I read your comments and came to the following conclusion. As much as Sasha's behavior towards my children angered me and freaked me out, calling her a creep was the wrong reaction to have. That said, I think it's best for my family to distance itself from Sasha for the time being. And at the very least, my previous decision to avoid future trips with her based on the Disney trip is still the best course of action. Sasha's pushiness, tendency to override my and my husband's parenting, and blatant favoritism towards my daughter were much worse when the kids were younger. After my daughter's birth, she began to focus too much attention on her and almost none on my son. I gave more examples of that in the comments on my original post. That's the reason why we set boundaries in the first place. Her fixation on my daughter also bothers me. When we had the boundary conversation with my father and Sasha, she told us that she'd always wondered what having a daughter would be like. She'd also defined herself as child-free before, so I was never certain what to think of that. Either way, that reassured me and my husband that we were doing the best for our kids. Those boundaries had never been overstepped. Then we went on the Disney trip, and most of them were completely ignored. Many of you pointed out that she might have gotten carried away, or that Disney is exciting and she wanted to make sure my kids had the best experience, etc. There are two things I'll say to that. The first is that whatever Sasha's reasons were, she still overstepped our boundaries. When we first set those, we told her that doing so would have consequences. Disney or not, I don't see a reason to make an exception. Secondly, she wasn't trying to ensure my kids had the best experience. She was pushing them to fulfill her fantasy of what their Disney trip should look like. She repeatedly ignored my children's wishes in favor of her own, despite them both being very clear about what they wanted and didn't want. Sasha also continually favored my daughter, including during my son's birthday, and fussed over her in ways that made her uncomfortable, and I still haven't forgiven the Little Mermaid thing. My daughter is a bit shy and takes a while to open up to most people, so knowing her trust was broken like that angers me in ways that I can't describe. To put it in simpler terms, my children aren't props, and whoever treats them as such will, at the very least, be put in time out. I called my father and Sasha on Saturday. I apologized for calling Sasha a creep, but told them that we needed some time apart. They won't see my family until my younger sister's birthday in late April. If that goes well, they'll be invited to my daughter's 5th birthday party in May. After that, we'll slowly work on re-establishing contact. I also said that if they overstepped our boundaries again, the consequences would be more dire. My father didn't take it well. I don't care. Sasha sent me a text with more apologies, followed by a request to at least FaceTime my kids every now and then. I said no. And to those who said my controlling behavior ruined the trip, my kids had an amazing time at Disney World. They are both still talking about it. My daughter keeps asking us to put her pictures with the characters she met up on the wall, and my son says he had the best birthday ever. I think that's it. Thank you for your advice and support on my first post. In the comments, Tony Reigns80 says, "These are your kids and your rules. Period." You protected your children, and that's the best thing you can do in any situation. I'm glad they're still talking about the trip, despite favoritism and the Ursula animatronic. which means you and your husband managed to outshine all of that with wonderful memories. For the possible reconciliation, everyone can act normal for a day, the birthday in late April, especially if they know there's a goalpost on that day. It's the behavior over time that counts. If they're still messaging you, requesting FaceTime calls, and calling you unreasonable despite you clearly saying that you want no contact, you could begin a tally. 1 point for each request, and when it's at X amount of points, they'll have their timeout extended because they obviously don't understand boundaries yet. OP replies, "That's great advice. We don't want to go no contact, but we will if our boundaries are disrespected. Knowing my father, a tally wouldn't be well received. I'm doing my best to avoid turning this into a bigger fight, but that kind of system would probably make things worse. It might be worth a shot though. I'll talk to my husband about it." Scarlett May West says, "Thanks for the update. You were doing the right thing and are prepared if your father and Sasha keep trying to push against your boundaries. Make sure anyone who might take their side is fully aware of the consequences of trying to mediate or help them." And OP replies, "Thankfully, no one's taking their sides. At most, my sister said that I'd been cruel to them." I see so many cases of women being arrested for inappropriate sexual relationships with minors that I'm dead convinced any adult who fixates on a child like that has bad intentions, regardless of gender. You 100% made the right choice, and I would highly advocate for not leaving your children, but especially your daughter, alone with her or letting her have unsupervised contact. Thank you for being an advocate for your children and what makes them comfortable." OP replies, "Neither of my kids have ever been alone with Sasha. She tried to offer babysitting services before, but we always say no. My son doesn't like her, and my daughter will usually do what he does." All I can think of is that poor 4-year-old clinging to her brother because she was promised no scary Ursula, and there was scary Ursula. Of effing course, Ursula was on a Little Mermaid ride. There is zero way Sasha thought she wasn't. She just didn't care. I also am skeptical that the originally chosen ride's line was too long. I actually don't doubt that last part. I went to Disney World in February, and the line for the Peter Pan ride was almost 2 hours long. It's really troubling the way that Sasha seems to see the children, the daughter in particular, as props and toys for her own enjoyment rather than small people with distinct personalities and preferences who need to be respected. OP retracted her characterizations of Sasha as creepy, but I think her initial reaction was the correct one. That's the perfect word here for Sasha's steamrolling. Ask your daughter how Sasha makes her feel. If she expresses discomfort, you know what you need to do. A bit of a story time. When I was 8, my parents divorced. Shortly after that, my dad took me to visit his mother in Florida. The first time that I'd seen her since my literal birth. She arranged a trip to Disney World for us, my first and only trip there. Somehow, Dad met up with an old girlfriend of his at his mum's. I have no idea how, because as far as I know, he had never lived in Florida himself. She invited herself into our vacation. The woman made my 8-year-old self supremely uncomfortable. She tried to insert herself into my life as a replacement mother, badmouthed my own mum, and tried to convince me she didn't love me and that she herself would be my new mum. Even slept with me on the pull-out couch, which really freaked me out. My dad didn't realize any of this. He was so clueless, and I didn't know how to tell him what was happening. This was supposed to be my bonding time with my grandmother, and this strange woman was ruining it. She went with us to Disney World, and she tainted that trip in much the same way that Sasha tainted yours. She was so overbearing and made everything about the relationship between her and I. I didn't really get to enjoy much of that day. There were even a few times when I was so overwhelmed, I broke down in tears, like your daughter. The excuse was that I was afraid of the rides that she pressured me into going on, but her behavior contributed to my meltdowns, as did my sleepless nights with that woman on the couch. My experience is not identical to yours, but I hope that it offered a child's perspective of such a situation. Your daughter may not like all of the attention that Sasha was giving her, but may not be able to articulate it, or may be afraid to. Sit her down and talk to her about it. Tell her it's okay to tell you anything, and ask her how the experience made her feel. And OP says, thanks for sharing that. It's always been clear that my daughter was uncomfortable with Sasha's behavior, which is why we made so many efforts to reinforce our boundaries. Timid or not, she was very vocal about what she wanted, be it our company, not Sasha's, or specific rides and souvenirs. In spite of that, I know we didn't shelter our daughter from everything. She's only 4, so I know the situation was a lot for her to process, and she can't articulate her feelings as well as her brother can. But she's not looking forward to seeing Sasha anytime soon, and I intend to respect that. Well, then that's exactly what you need to do then. If it's clear that your daughter is uncomfortable with the attention Sasha is directing towards her, then you need to limit their contact. And if Sasha refuses to rein it in, then go no contact. Your daughter comes before Sasha's feelings. Am I the asshole for ruining a baby name? I am Brazilian, but I've been living in the US for 3 years. My first language is Brazilian Portuguese. I have a 4-year-old son, and I'm pregnant with a girl due in May. My son is friends with a girl whose mother, I'll call her Becca, is also pregnant. She's due a couple of weeks before me and is also expecting a 3rd girl. Since we take our kids on playdates almost weekly, we frequently talk about our pregnancies. Becca is into unique names, not uniques or tragedies, but names that she and her husband create. It's not my style, but she managed to come up with genuinely nice names for both of her older daughters, so there was never really a reason for me to say anything. This time, Becca and her husband had a lot of trouble coming up with a new name. She first brought this up last December. For months, they'd try to create something that sounded good, but with no success. We took our kids on a playdate at a park this weekend. When we sat down for a snack, Becca excitedly told me that they'd finally settled on a name. I was really happy for her and asked her what she had chosen. Narina. To those who don't know, that's Portuguese for nostril. I managed to control myself and told her that it sounded lovely, but my son let out a giggle. My husband and I are raising him bilingual, so he speaks Portuguese, and Becca wanted to know why. I tried to brush it off, but she kept insisting. Eventually, I told her that while Narina could be a lovely name, it was also the Portuguese word for nostril. Becca seemed really sad to hear that. She said she'd think of something else, but had fallen in love with Narina. After we went home, Becca's husband called me. He was furious at me for ruining the only name they had agreed on. Apparently, he had a fight with Becca because she told him that she wanted to think of something else. He argued they'd never visit Brazil anyway, so they shouldn't have to change the name. But Becca refused to use Narina. My husband agrees that their fight is not my fault, but thinks that I didn't need to tell Becca anything, since Americans are unlikely to know what Narina means. Am I the asshole? Edit. This was not my son's fault. He is 4 years old and had an honest reaction to hearing a baby would essentially be named Nostril. I get that some people might think that I was the asshole, but don't blame my child for this. Edit 2. Okay, a lot of people are misreading Narina as Narnia. No real comment on that, but the Chronicles of Nostril does have a nice ring to it. In the comments, Test Monkey Alpha says, not the asshole. I'm shocked they didn't bother Googling their name ideas as they came up with them. I see Narina as Nostril on the first page of search results. OP replies, I don't think they ever do. Apparently their eldest daughter's name also means something in a different language, though a much cuter word, and they had no idea until someone who spoke it told them. As a fellow Brazilian, I'm impressed you were able to control yourself. I would have probably let a little giggle escape. I mean, can you imagine a little Narina running around? Impossible not to laugh at least a little. Totally not the asshole. It's not your problem that they chose that name. Perhaps if they added a Y like Nayrina, it would be better for your friend? Not the asshole. You want to know what I think? I think that her jerk of a husband would have called you livid that you didn't warn them when they inevitably meet someone who knows Portuguese and knows what that kid's name means. He's rude. I have 7 nibblings. I'm from a white American family. 3 nibblings speak Portuguese. Dad's Brazilian. Another two speak Spanish, Dad's Colombian, the other two, Dad's white American, are learning Portuguese because my sister wants to move there. Hubby's mum is a French teacher, and her kids range from basic understanding to fully fluent. Kids are going to interact with a lot of people who speak other languages, even in the USA. Not the arsehole. You weren't really given any other choice other than to explain your son's reaction. Even if you would manage to brush it off, there is a high chance that your son might have spilled the beans at a later time, like after her child is born. Young kids rarely know how and when to filter things, and that goes double if they are a chatty child. Knowing the name has an unflattering translation in another language obviously bothers your friend. If she had found out anyway after naming her child, she might have been upset with you for not saying. This is one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations for you. But definitely not the arsehole for their arguments. All you did was give her the truth. It's up to them how they use that information. It's not your fault that they are disagreeing. That's on them. Friend's husband is the arsehole for confronting you. Could she maybe call her daughter Marina? That name has been around for a long time, but is still unusual. No idea if it has any meaning though. And OP says, it's actually a very common name in Brazil. That would be the problem though. Their whole naming strategy is creating new names. What about Larina? Still unique and cute. And OP says, while it definitely could be cute, and I'm not saying it will ever come up in her daughter's life, I think it's pretty close to latrina, which I probably don't have to translate. Yeah, I'm just gonna hop on board with this one. I don't think you're the asshole for ruining a baby name. I think that given the circumstances and that potential interaction you would have in the future with the baby already being named that, you've done the right thing here, even though your hand was forced. It does appear as though that husband was just looking for someone to be angry at, because how can he, in good faith, name the child that after knowing that they are going to be bullied? He's a piece of shit for putting that on you. Is he projecting his insecurities and his own failings onto you? This guy seems like he's more than happy to set his children up to be bullied in school. That's not cool. And now, on to the update. Hey Reddit, thank you for all of your feedback and advice on my original post. First of all, I want to clarify that I never told Becca not to name her daughter Narina. I just told her what it meant in Portuguese. And only because my son laughed. Again, this wasn't his fault. It was my translation that made her change the name, but it was still her decision. I got a DM about how I shouldn't have involved my native language into Becca's choice for her daughter's name, which was also not the case. I found no joy in telling Becca what it meant. There are plenty of normal names in the English language that I can ruin with Portuguese. I've actually been listing some since my first post, but I wouldn't translate them without being asked to. Many of you came forward saying that Narina was also a flower, the Finnish word for a creaking sound, and an actual Persian name. I didn't know any of that, but it was interesting to find out. I listed most of the meanings you guys gave me with the intention of showing them to Becca. I also got a lot of comments suggesting similar names: Marina, Nara, Nerina, Narine, etc., and I wrote down some of them as well. Becca and I met for another playdate with the kids, and I showed her my lists. I also emphasized that she could still use the name Narina if she wanted to. At first, she politely turned everything down, including that last part. While Becca said that she did like some of the names that I told her about, her method consists solely of creating new names with her husband. Apparently they got to Narina by mixing and matching syllables until they had something that sounded nice, and finding out the name that they'd created for their daughter also meant nostril was enough for her to lose interest in it. Becca did love the name Nerina though. She didn't admit it until we were about to go our separate ways, but she said she would mention it to her husband. And, speak of the devil, her husband, as far as I know, is still pissed at me. He didn't try to contact me again, but Becca said he rolled his eyes when she mentioned the upcoming playdate. Apparently, he's the one who came up with the order of the syllables that resulted in Narina, and was upset that I had ruined it. I told Becca that I didn't want to hear from her husband again. She agreed his phone call was extremely inappropriate and promised to tell him not to contact me any further. Look, I'm not gonna lie, I'm really effing glad they did not name their kid Nostril. I'm also really proud of myself for holding in my laughter when I first heard that. But I know that Becca is a great mother who is perfectly capable of naming her children, so I know her daughter's name will be beautiful. I think that's all. Becca's baby might be named Nerina. That will depend on Nostril Sr. though. Also, for justice's sake, my daughter will be named Luciana. Feel free to translate it. But seriously, thank you guys. In the comments, Amicius says, how wide are these people that they thought they invented a word that already exists in at least 4 other languages? I feel like my suggestion is to avoid these people. Most likely they haven't traveled and aren't familiar with any language but English. I'm around other languages, especially Spanish, quite a lot. I had no clue that the word Nerina meant anything at all, and just thought that it was an odd pick for a name. It's not like people frequently say nostril in regular conversation. After all of this, I learned it's a word in multiple languages, all with very different meanings, and that fascinates me. Since they thought they had totally manufactured the name, they had no reason to look it up. Lol. I think they've learned a good lesson. Nostril Senior. I actually lolled. Nice updates. Edit to add, maybe they should just Google the name they come up with before deciding. OP says, my husband and I have been calling him that almost exclusively. Yeah, some names are normal in certain languages or cultures, but very inappropriate or funny in others. Like in Vietnamese, we have the name Dung, meaning purity and harmony. But, well, you know how that sounds in English. In Thai, there's a lot of girl names that end with porn, which means blessing, like Idaporn, Amporn, Ratamporn, Siraporn, etc. And it is self-explained for English speakers. The only asshole here is the husband. Becca's husband deserves to be called Nostril Senior for that attitude, lol. Side note, why do people give children such weird and bad names? Giving a child's name is important, and you shouldn't give them silly or dumb names, because if you do, those names will surely get the child bullied and made fun of. It's like trying to name your child Tinkerbell. Our next post is by user ExcitingIce9119, titled, Am I the asshole for cutting my mother-in-law off because she told my daughter she hoped I had died when I was taken to hospital? I, 30 female, was in a car crash. I had to be cut out of the car. I wasn't seriously injured though, thankfully, but the other person unfortunately wasn't doing well from what I saw before I was taken away to the hospital. I was told to stay in hospital overnight to see if I suffered from a concussion. I rang my husband and told him what happened. My mother-in-law got the incidents mixed up when he dropped off our daughters, 6, 11, to my mother-in-law while he rushed to see me. The next morning, my husband rang our daughters to come get me while I was waiting to be discharged. Upon seeing me, my 6-year-old busted into tears and said, I don't want you to die. I comforted her and said I'm not dying, and I was very lucky. She then said Granny said she hoped I die so that them and my husband can come live with her. Me and my husband were shocked, and my 12-year-old confirmed that she heard her say that. My husband said he was going to ring mother-in-law. When he came back in the room, he looked furious, but didn't say anything until after we got home, and he said mother-in-law denied it, but after he kept pushing, she ended up admitting it. But she said she didn't mean it. I thought me and her were close, but I guess not. I am incredibly hurt that she would want that, and said I wanted me and the girls go no contact with mother-in-law. I told him that he can have a relationship with her, but I don't want me and the girls to have one with her. My husband said he supports me. He then rang mother-in-law and told her what I said. She didn't take it too well. She came to our house crying and said that it was a misunderstanding and she didn't mean it and that we were taking it the wrong way. My husband asked, what did you mean then? And she just got hysterical and started crying and saying she always wanted daughters, but my husband was the only child due to her not being able to have any more after him, and that the girls are more like her daughters than granddaughters, and she wasn't thinking properly when she said that to our 6-year-old. She got so worked up that my husband had to take her home. When he got back, he said he didn't know she felt like that and asked did I want to still cut her off. I said yes, and he said okay and didn't argue. But it's been a week now and he's still very quiet and hasn't said much about what happened, and now I'm starting to feel guilty and wondering if I did take it the wrong way and am being the asshole here. In the comments, Lakila says, "She traumatized your child. It was horrifying for your daughter to hear that. Bad enough that her mum was in the hospital after a car accident. As a young child, she likely had a whole lot of frightening scenarios going through her mind, unable to properly process that. Your daughter needed assurance and positivity, not what that disgusting Harridan said. Mother-in-law did mean it. You don't blurt something like that out of misunderstanding or as a joke. That whole hysterical outburst she put on in front of you, that was bullshit. Manipulative bullshit. Because she got caught. And it seems to have worked on your husband because she's trained or brainwashed him that way. Stand your ground. She needs at the very least a good long time out. Do not let your husband or anyone sweep this under the rug, because doing that would make everyone think that it's perfectly okay for mother-in-law to hope that you died. For your daughters to lose their mum. That's sickening. I'd make that time out at least 6 months. Hell, make it for the rest of this year, so she loses out on the big holidays at the very least. What a vile effing cow. Not the asshole. I agree with all of this. Mother-in-law's tears are manipulative. It's disgusting she wished you were dead, but it's unforgivable she told a child that. I would go no contact for years. I'm baffled she sees her grandkids more like her own children, and the fact that she resents OP for having daughters. That prompted mother-in-law to say that I hope she's dead to a 6-year-old. I can't imagine telling a 6-year-old that I hope her mum is dead. It's sick. That child might actually experience emotional trauma from this whole event. Awful. At first, I hoped that it was just a misunderstanding, and mother-in-law actually said, "Don't worry, if something happens to your mum, you can always come live with me." But no, the older girl confirmed what she actually said. How can someone say that to a child at such a time? Even saying, if something happens to your mum to a 6-year-old, will be traumatizing to them. Mother-in-law is just a vile human being. Not the asshole. Why would you feel guilty? She wished you dead out loud to your child so she could have a child with a vagina. That is so beyond messed up. Hopefully your husband realizes how absolutely effed up that is and cuts her off too. Being fair to her husband, cutting off his mother is probably difficult. I think they should cut her off, but that doesn't mean that it isn't hard. He's probably also struggling himself. His mother admitted that he wasn't good enough because she wanted daughters. You do realize that she basically told your husband that she didn't want a boy. He's probably dealing with his own issues at the moment, and that's why he's been quiet. The mean person is mother-in-law, not the asshole. I will say you of course should be mad at what happened and can understand going no contact, and I can understand no contact with a kid for a while as well. I will say that you do need to understand this is hard on your husband as well. He was basically told by his mum that he wasn't enough. He can decide if he wants contact again someday, but I'd recommend speaking to a therapist for him. As far as long-term no contact for your child, I'd say give it some time, and then both of you can talk. Maybe with professional help, about any further contact between grandma and child. Insane that a car crash happens and your life is in danger, yet this mother-in-law finds a way to traumatize everyone and make everything about her. Can people really not be insane for 2 seconds? Genuinely, what was going through her head? By the way, son, I wish that you were never born because I'd rather have a daughter, and at the same time, I hope your wife dies because then I can finally get the girls that I never had. Also, I hate you. Lunatic. Disgusting freak behavior right there. I would be going no contact with her for at least a year. OP, I'm confused. How do you have all this vitriol spewed in your face and then ask if you're an asshole for cutting her off after obvious crocodile tears? She preyed on your downfall. She wants you to die and you're like, I should give her a chance. I should really. That show she put on, it was beautiful. Give her an Oscar because she has me convinced. And now, on to the updates. Well, you guys were right. I decided to talk to my husband and asked if he's upset that I decided that me and the girls go no contact with mother-in-law. He said he wasn't. He said he always knew that mother-in-law wanted a daughter instead of him, and it brought back all the bad memories of rejection and hurt that he felt growing up as a kid by her. I suggested therapy, and he's willing to go. We are also going to get therapy for our 6-year-old, as she now gets anxious if I'm not within her sight. My husband agreed that going no contact with mother-in-law is the best thing for our family. Our daughter's birthday is coming up, and we have yet to tell mother-in-law that she is no longer invited. I'm not looking forward to that, but that's the update. Thanks everyone for the lovely comments and support. I appreciate it. In the comments, Danivel says, suggestion? Maybe take your daughter out of town for her birthday to a nearby attraction, zoo, play, something on her special birthday instead of a party, or a party on a later date with her little friends instead of family. If you're not there, mother-in-law can throw all the witch fits that she wants, and nobody will be there to see her, and there's no party for her to ruin. This is a great idea. We've always taken our kids out on an adventure for their birthdays, which morphed into dinner out on mum and dad when they became adults. My husband's brother was a drug addict, bipolar disaster who could not stand all the attention not being on him, especially if it meant that the attention was somehow on my husband, which included attention paid to our kids by their grandparents. Not the asshole. I cut off my mother and brother after they said that I should have died in the car accident. If someone wishes you dead, do them the favor and get out of their life. Quotes, we have yet to tell mother-in-law she is no longer invited. Don't tell her. No contact means you simply don't tell her any details. She's literally not receiving an invitation. If she knows them, change the plans. Don't let her re-traumatize your kids by showing up and making a scene. Also, make sure the schools know not to let her near your girls. Yes, this combined with the going out of town bit may just be perfect. I wondered why the husband was acting so reasonably, but then it came out that he was a long-time victim of her abuse. I hope the family's able to heal. Oh, and F. Christina. I thought he was, understandably, it's a big shift and a lot to process, sad about going no contact, even if he agreed wholeheartedly that it was the right thing to do. I did not expect that he had been triggered into reliving a childhood of rejection. I'm so glad that these people found each other and that they can have all the messy shit on the table to work through as a family. Because holy cow. Can you imagine how much worse that poor man's childhood would have been if he had a sister? I'm guessing he'd be stuck playing scapegoat to this hypothetical golden sister who would herself have been trapped into playing out mother-in-law's deranged fantasies and deprived of any chance to find her own way in life. While possibly raising the sister to also be an abusive asshole. Poor guy was never going to win, but the mum not getting her way probably saved him some suffering, aside from Granny trying to hoard and traumatize his daughters, of course. Telling a kid that you hope their mother dies so you can get them is next level deranged. Like she wants daughters so much, she's okay traumatizing them first. Wait, she was awful to her actual kid? Well yeah, this woman needs a psych evaluation soon because 100% she's going to snatch the kids and say that they are hers. Would I be the asshole for telling my husband I'm not in love with him anymore after I had a brain injury? Long story short, I was in a car accident. The other driver did a hit and run. Sentencing is taking a lot longer than I expected, but my lawyer said he's probably going to have to do a lot of community service. I ended up needing physical therapy. I had a brain injury, and my neuro said that I would have some challenges. I am in PT. One of the things they said I would face is differences in mood and behavior. I haven't been moodier. In fact, my friends and family say that I'm basically the same as before, but a little slow to get things. But the thing is, I don't love my husband anymore. He feels like a stranger to me. It's not like I'm amnesiac, but I don't feel connected to the memories that I have with him. I don't know why I loved him so much. Yes, he's attractive, but he's boring and expects me to worship him. He's also obnoxious and self-obsessed. I feel like I was the one dragging the relationship in the past. I felt like past me was way more in love with him than he was with me, and objectively, I don't know why I should care about him. I don't want to go on dates with him or hang around or do whatever I used to do with him. I've told him I feel a bit disconnected with my memories and past emotions, but I haven't told him that I don't love him anymore. I've talked about it with a psychiatrist, and she said this wasn't uncommon among patients. I told my friend, and she insisted I should tell him how I feel honestly. Honestly, I may not like my husband, but I feel like that would be cruel. Would I be the asshole for telling my husband I don't love him after my TBI? In the comments, PeteFriend86 says, not the asshole. However, I'd heavily advise to phrase this exactly how it is. Brain damage. I'm having trouble connecting to our intimacy. I don't feel it like I know I should. OP says, I've phrased it like, I feel like my memories aren't connected with me. It's like I'm remembering a movie that I watched. I also have a brain injury. Sometimes my brain will replace real memories with dreams. Sometimes I will remember something that never was. I would fight to the death to prove something and be totally wrong. I feel and understand your pain here. They still have very little real information on the totality of the effects of a brain injury, but I would venture to bet those feelings aren't coming back because mine never did. I go by my middle name now because I feel like so much of a different person than before, but my advice to you is just to be honest by default, but go easy. He will never ever understand because nothing changed for him while everything has changed for you. P.S. I am sure you have changed, but your family is just trying to be nice, and both of those things are okay. You are different now, do not try to fit in your old skin. If this is recent and you want to talk, hit me up. Been living in dreamland for a decade now. This happened to my husband, also a car accident. For the next 6 to 8 months, he didn't just not love me, he actively disliked me. He would sit next to me and say how horrible I was and how much he didn't like being married. I don't know how it works in the brain, but these feelings just wore off over time the longer that he recovered. When we started marriage counseling a couple of years later, he didn't remember the first 6 months after his accident at all. I believe him. Doctor confirmed that it's possible. All this to say that you are not the asshole, and it's not your fault if your feelings change. These also may have been latent feelings from before and not due to the accident. But if it's only been a few months, maybe wait a bit longer, just in case. But do whatever is best for your recovery. Polygon Man says, you should talk to your doctor and psychiatrist about the chance that this changes. Perhaps with this new perspective, you wouldn't want to be with him even if your feelings did change back to how they were, but perhaps you'd want to work things out. If you know that it's unlikely this will spontaneously change back, then I think telling him and moving towards divorce is the best decision for sure. It's not uncommon for people to feel disconnected. That says nothing about the chance it changes. OP says, the psychiatrist said that it could come back naturally or it could not. Brain injuries are unpredictable. I've been trying to build intimacy with my husband, but I don't like who he is as a person, and I wonder how I fell in love with him. Sounds like it would be a good idea to talk over your entire relationship and how you fell in love with him with a therapist. Yeah, I don't think you'd be the asshole for telling him that you're not in love with him because brain injuries are very serious and completely different from person to person as to how they affect you. I don't agree with Polygon Man there saying, well, it's time to tell him and move towards divorce because I think that's the best decision for sure. I don't think that's the best decision for sure. That's a bit trigger happy, Polygon Man. Like, Jesus Christ, do you see other people's stories in the comments here of how it can get better over time and, maybe she doesn't even remember these first 6 months after the traumatic brain injury. Yes, she has completely changed in some ways, but OP should just give this time and not divorce straight away, because what if it does change in the future? Who knows what's going to happen? I think if I was in his shoes and there was a very quick divorce and my wife telling me that she now hates me and now can't see how she ever fell in love with me because I'm up my own ass all the time, that would affect me pretty badly as the husband in this instance. You very much ruin your chances at reconnecting in the future if you do something like that. And now, on to the update. I talked with my husband. I don't want to hurt his feelings, and I wanted to fall back in love with him. I sat him down and I told him that I felt disconnected from my own emotions and past with him, that my memories with him felt like I was reliving a movie, not my own life. He guessed that I wasn't in love with him, and he sobbed and begged me not to leave him. It was heartbreaking, and I reassured him that I wasn't going anywhere. I wanted to build up my emotions again and reconnect with my past memories about him. So we decided that I would go back to the doctors to figure out how I can do that, and in the meantime, we would go on dates where he was trying to win me over again. Some have asked me what kind of behaviors I didn't like. When I was in the hospital, he would always crawl into bed and cram me into the corner. At our date, he talked through the entire movie and had his flash on when he was taking pictures of me. I didn't ask him to take pictures. He just likes taking ugly pictures of me. He complains a lot, and when we were in the restaurant, he kept complaining about the food he ordered to the waiter. He pokes me a lot. He also whines. And he made me eat dessert even if I don't want to, and he never stops talking. But I focused on the bigger things. He's very attentive and affectionate towards me. He likes to buy me little gifts that he makes me try, and he was at my side the entire time, even if he did get kicked out by the nurses for annoying them. That's cute. I know I can rely on him and be there for me, which is the most important thing. At the end of the date, we actually slept together for the first time since my accident, which was less than a year ago, but it had been a couple of months since I was cleared to have sex. We hadn't really been romantic and intimate, so it really did feel like I was with an annoying best friend, but I wanted to fall back in love with him. We used to be frequently intimate before my accident. This entire paragraph is very embarrassing to write, so please skip if you are like me and easily embarrassed by PDA. He's actually incredible, and I swear I fell back in love with him for a few seconds. I honestly am much more inclined to ignore all of his annoying habits or even find them cute. We slept together in the morning too, and the second day of dating went a lot better. I'm not fully in love with him yet, and I want to reforge the deeper connection because I know I loved him for a lot more, and I do not want my affection for him resting solely on one thing. I've started a journal of all the things that I like and love about him. Hopefully it gets filled soon. Edit, to answer a few questions I got, yes, it was a movie theater. The other moviegoers were not happy. This isn't new behavior. He always talked a lot and was in my personal space even before my accident. When I was recovering, the nurses kicked him out for annoying them, but they let him back in after a bit. In the comments, Brief Association says, he might be annoying, but man, he's one hell of a trooper. That man sure loves you. I'm glad you're trying. I hope you guys can get the old spark back fully. Keep being very open and honest. Communicate all of your feelings. It can't hurt, and it likely will help for him to know everything. Best of luck to you both. I hope to see an even better update in the future. In another thread, we were thinking about what percentage of men abandoned their wives when they became sick. It's about 20% of men versus 2% of women who leave their sick spouses. I would give him a chance because not everyone can or will be able to cope with this. Here's the thing. Everything you mentioned about him that really bothers you is all stuff that you'd never notice during the dating and courtship phase, and they're all things people sort of hide during those early days. The part where you're getting to know each other and all that happens when you're falling in love. These things that you don't like, they are all a part of the man that you love. But you forgot them all and are experiencing them fresh as if they are new, and you no longer have the larger context that they are smaller parts of the man that you love. He isn't even aware they are so apparent to you probably. In the early parts, we are all on our best behavior and somewhat nervous and guarded, but he's not at all, and why should he be? To him, you're his wife who he loves and nearly lost. He's just happy to have you, probably thrilled and more in love with you than ever. You are seeing all of these imperfections in him that are real and maybe never really bothered you before, because he's so comfortable around you that he's just himself, because he loves you. Give him a really good, solid chance, because it sounds like he's earned it, and it sounds like he sure loves you. Welp, new fear unlocked. The person I love most in the world forgets why she fell in love with me and can only see my negative quirks. And I have much, much more than anyone should like. Not a new fear for me. I have pretty intense abandonment trauma, and there is always this tiny niggling part of my brain that's like, your partner could just wake up tomorrow and decide that they don't love you anymore. And now this post is telling me that it can actually happen? No, thank you. I'm good, by the way. I've worked really hard on unpacking my grief and trauma, and it's just something that I live with and am aware of. Thoughts like this one are like an annoying fly that I always have to swat away at this point, instead of being just this big scary thing that could definitely happen any day now. But I'm just going to pretend that I never read this whole post. I love psychology and neuroscience just from a relationship standpoint. The complaints that OP points out regarding her husband are excellent evidence of the significance neuroplasticity plays in long-term relationship formation. Basically, until your early 30s, one's neurological plasticity is at peak levels. This is why younger people with average or below average IQ can pick up foreign languages much more easily than older people with above average IQ. The same goes for intimate relationship formation. Especially in non-homogeneous societies, every individual has such a broad array of individual quirks that strong levels of attraction, horny hormones overpowering actual logic, are required for most people to have even the slightest chance of lifelong happiness with an individual spouse in marriage. But this is easiest, almost required for many people, if that attraction and intimate commitment and connection is made before you hit your 30s. The reason being, your neurological plasticity allows for your brain to create workarounds, synaptic bypasses that allow your partner's quirks to circumvent one's otherwise icks. This allows you to be more capable of falling in love with a large spouse candidate pool, giving you better chances of finding someone with true love without settling. But those bypasses become more difficult, if not impossible to form by the time we hit our 30s, making lifelong spouse selection insanely more difficult as one gets older. In OP's case, her brain injury might have basically hit the reset button on all of that. Luckily for her hubs, she seems committed nonetheless, a testament to OP's character and how seriously she takes marriage. Truly a great wife. Our next post is by user Realistic Gas, titled, "Am I wrong for cancelling our wedding? We have been engaged for 3 years. My fiancé went on a trip of a lifetime 6 weeks in Europe. She decided that we should take a break in our relationship, allowing me no input in the decision. I called her the day she left and had me blocked, so I cancelled our marriage and her moving in with me in March. She called me today to inform me of her arrival time on Thursday morning, to which I answered, what does that have to do with me? And have since blocked her. Edit, I should explain better. I was fine with her trip with her old college sisters. In fact, I dropped her at the airport and took her to boarding. That is when she dropped the whole break thing on me. Didn't explain it, just told me matter of fact, and left. I called her the rest of the day and tried to call her when I was able to the rest of the week. After 5 days of ignoring me, I had enough that the wedding was off. She can move in with someone else because it's not going to be me." In the comments, Right Weather says, "Cancelled wedding fees are much cheaper than a divorce lawyer and court costs." Absolutely. What's your life worth? A hell of a lot more than some lost deposits. She blocked you for 6 weeks to go to Europe on a break so that she could bang people. I am so sorry that happened to you. I would have broken up with my partner if he blocked me just because he goes on a trip. If she wants to be free before marriage, she will do it again. Not wrong. Yeah, there was no need to have a break otherwise. She wanted to cheat without admitting to cheating. Why else would anyone need to have a break when it was simply a trip? I feel so bad for the OP too. She even allowed him 0 input. Are you kidding me? And blocked him? What's wrong with her? OP, I'm happy for you that the trash took itself out. I'm amazed at the woman's goal. 6 weeks before a wedding, taking a break from the relationship and going over to Europe, then expecting to come back as if everything is unchanged. Yeah, absolutely not the asshole for this one. I don't know what you're expecting when you just block your fiancé of 3 years like that. This is something I've never heard of before. I want to know the thought process going through her head. It's like, I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission. So, bye! You're blocked, Buster. I'm gonna go sleep around in Europe for 6 weeks, and then it's all gonna be hunky-dory because I'll just pray for forgiveness when we get back. I want what she's smoking because that level of delusion is mind-blowing. And now, onto the update-ish. We have a group chat among people close to us. Today, I informed them all that our marriage is cancelled and our relationship is over. Did that at about 10 a.m. The chat quite literally exploded, starting with questions about what happened, which I answered honestly. About 2 p.m., she started just asking me to call her so that we could discuss this. I told her that talking on chat is perfectly fine, and she said no. This is something between just us. Still have not spoken with her. Last message was from her at 6 p.m. Please pick me up at the airport so we can talk this out as we planned. I answered her, that was your plan, not mine. None of this was my plan. Her flight is at 9 a.m. I wish her luck. In the comments, Bolt McHardsteel says, stay strong, OP. Get ready for tears, snot bubbles, the whole 9 yards. There's just simply isn't an excuse that she can give you that will excuse the last 6 weeks. Keep that in mind and block her. No reason to keep entertaining the calls, voicemails, and texts. Hang in there. Good for you. Do yourself a favor and never speak to her again. She did not care about how her behavior would affect you and how badly she would hurt you. This is not someone that you spend the rest of your life with. Your ex did you a favor. If you were to meet her, she would minimize her actions, call you controlling and insecure, and then blame others. Do not give her closure or make her feel good about herself. I hope you change the locks to your apartment if she has the key, or else you could go home to a trashed apartment. Keep us posted. OP says, I didn't even think about the fact she has a key. I'm gonna get that fixed right away. Did she block you on social media too, or just the phone? When I'm traveling, I always update my Insta and Facebook feed with typical vacay pics. Surely her or one of the other girls kept everyone updated. OP says, I was blocked everywhere that I could think of. What the hell? That makes no sense. I've never been so enraged for a stranger. Better to get out now and find someone, and you will, who will appreciate you. OP says, this is from a woman who posts pictures of her breakfasts. So she posts no pics of a huge 6-week vacation. It's a straight-up cover-up. And now onto the latest update. First off, I got my ring back, and it's safe with my mum. Secondly, I would like to thank everyone for keeping me grounded while I was doubting myself. I'm not sure who said it, but someone said that I shouldn't bother with what she did on her trip and focus on her breaking up with me at the airport, which I did, and was not what she was prepared to argue about. So now she knows how it feels to be blindsided also. Seems her college sisters told her that I would be insecure and fight about something that I couldn't hope to prove, so when I didn't, she didn't know what to do. At one point, she excused herself to go to the restroom and didn't come back out for 20 minutes. Seems the brain trust was at a loss too. So, do you have any vacation ideas? In the comments, Shul79 says, I think the answer for a vacation is clear. 6 weeks in Europe. I can imagine that her family is fuming, not just at her behavior, but also at all the money she just cost them in cancelled wedding plans. OP says, you're an absolute genius. I'm looking up some right now. Take a cheap, relaxing week or two getaway. I'd suggest a beach somewhere. Then keep the rest of the money that you saved up and buy that house anyway. Don't blow through it all trying to get over her when you clearly meant so little to her that she couldn't be bothered to communicate with you once in 6 weeks. And when you buy that house, be sure to post the pictures online. Post about taking that next big step in your life and leaving everything else in the rearview mirror where it belongs. Amazing. Her only discussion point was gaslighting. OP says, I doubt this is over yet, but it doesn't matter. I am going on vacation. I have been saving for a house for 3 years. I'm going to spoil myself. Ever been to Costa Rica? That's still among the nicest places I've ever visited. You know how some people like mountains and others like beaches? Well, there you have both. Plus, the local beer is not bad at all. Good for you, OP. I'm always amazed at how many times on Reddit that somebody like your ex screws up because they take advice from their friends. I also think that some stories about what she did in Europe will eventually filter out to you. OP says, my mother gave me some great advice about the less I show I care about it, the more she will end up admitting. We'll just wait and see what happens with that. Your mum's a winner. Your ex will most likely want to meet with you again to talk. I think you should meet, but without her coven in a public place, and let her talk. I've been thinking, from what you have told me about your ex and her coven being so focused on what happened during the trip, is a clue. Seems very immature to only try to hide her infidelity. They seem absolutely clueless about addressing trust and relationships. They're acting like bad girl teenagers. On the face of it, I think they've convinced themselves if you would accept there was no infidelity, then you had to take her back like nothing ever happened. Macronin77 asks, did she attempt to explain or justify her springing a brake on you as she boards the plane, or blocking you on everything? And OP says, she even tried to change the subject to what happened on the trip instead of what happened between us at the airport. That is what she was prepared for. How far did you let her get? I admit I'm a little interested in the story that they came up with. And OP says, I told her what she did after she broke up with me wasn't any of my business, so I couldn't care less. Have her parents reached out? OP says, spoke with her parents last night. That woke me up. They must have forgotten about the time difference between coasts. They offered to pay for couples therapy to help us work through this rough patch, as her mother called it. I told them, no thank you. She ended our relationship. Do her parents know the truth? OP says, she told them a watered-down version where I am overreacting, and I told them exactly what happened. And she made it out that while on vacation, she would be unavailable to communicate with. Where I told them exactly what she said. Has OP checked her social media since? OP says, I stupidly, I know, checked to see if I was still blocked on her socials. And amazingly, yesterday, she posted 30 pictures from her trip and had a full recap of what they did and saw. The pictures are of places in France, Italy, and Spain. Most are group shots with all 6 of them, like tourist-style ones, and others are churches and museums and a few shops. All are during the day, like a tour or something. The ex on reaching out since, OP says, it's funny how a woman can do creepy stalker shit and it's fine, but a guy does the same thing and he's straight going to jail. Baffling to me. She is leaving letters for me with people she knows that I will interact with, like the security guy at my building, with the receptionists at work. The letters themselves are a little more than pleading with me to not throw us away for nothing, and professing her love for me. OP heads to Scotland for a vacation. OP says, I'm leaving Monday, and my old college roommate lives in Edinburgh, so I'm going to do some pub crawling with him, and also see if Scottish food is really a dare. I would like to thank everyone for helping me stand back up. I was depressed and feeling quite worthless. I leave tomorrow for my first trip across the pond, I think they say. I'm gonna nerd out with my buddy and explore Edinburgh, which in the pics I looked at seems amazing. I'll try to keep my Reddit family updated as much as I can. Once again, thank you so much. So, craziest thing just happened. My cell phone works just fine in Europe. Who knew? Did she call you again? OP says she is blocked, but keeps asking in group chats for me to please call her. I guess she understands that she destroyed the relationship. She's starting to take a beating in our group chat. Seems the shock has worn off, and our friends are realizing how effed up what she did really was. Well, that's exactly what she deserved. She keeps apologizing, but not what she is apologizing for. She can't even defend herself without making it worse, which would be funny if it wasn't me on the receiving end of this crap. If she doesn't drop out of the group chat, our friends are really starting to give her shit about it. She keeps saying that she's sorry and that as soon as I'm ready to talk and work through this, she will be waiting. She confirmed that she ghosted me, since she apologized for it on our group chat last night. She is spinning that she was getting nervous about the wedding and wanted some time off to think. Further in the comments, Plus Data says, asking for a break. Was that code for I can technically cheat and get away with it and then come home and settle for you? She's deluded. Honestly, does it even matter if she cheated? Ghosting somebody for 6 weeks with no warning is enough of a deal breaker. Completely insane behavior. I wonder how many of her friends on the trip were also single. I guess most or all were single, and they wanted her to really enjoy herself without worrying about her fiancé. So gross. OP did the right thing 100%. It's actually hilarious that she was trying to crowdsource a defense and they all came up blank. I'd like to think that the Brain Trust is in a similar situation to the 3 witches who shared one eye and one tooth between them. Am I the asshole for refusing to give my daughter my wedding dress for her wedding? Hi, I thought I might ask here and see your opinion since you've helped someone with some similar conundrum earlier. I will definitely take your input into consideration. My female 45, daughter, female 20, is getting married in a few months. She came to ask me about borrowing my wedding dress, and I said absolutely not, since it's my dress and I love it very much. What makes me probably the asshole is that it's something many women have done, and apparently it's a beautiful tradition, and mothers are often happy to do it. It's even an honor to the woman. But for me, I just can't. I love this dress. I was the one who designed it, and my mother, who was an excellent seamstress, made it for me. Looking at my wardrobe, this is the last piece that I have that she made. My daughter wouldn't just borrow it either. She is much bigger than me, and she just wants to use the fabric and alter it irreversibly because she's a size 14 and the dress is a size 4. Now she is angrily telling everyone that I am a cold-hearted hag who hates her. My sister thinks that a dress isn't worth making a bride sad. I don't know. I love my daughter to the moon and back, but I don't understand why she shouldn't hear a no just because she's getting married. Even if she was the right size and wouldn't alter the dress, isn't it odd to not respect other people's property, no matter if that is your mother? Since when did mothers stop being their own individuals and only became caterers for their children? Here is a similar dress for reference. In the comments, Euphoric Travel 2541 says, "Not the arsehole. Your daughter sounds very young and unkind if she's calling you names. She would remake your dress in a permanent way to fit her. It holds precious memories for you the way that it is. You should preserve it, and she is in the wrong to complain. If she were able to wear it without altering it, maybe, but it's still your call entirely. She sounds like she might benefit from waiting to marry until she is more mature." OP says, "That's a whole different story that I have no energy to get into. I want her to live her life and make something out of herself before marriage, but that's her call." Does your sister have a wedding dress that your daughter can use? Every female that gives you a hard time should be asked to donate their dress instead. OP says, "Haha, no, my sister isn't married yet." Well then suggest your sister buy your daughter a dress, and when the sister marries, she can borrow from your daughter. What a touching idea, sarcasm. Not the asshole for wanting to keep your dress. Not the asshole. The dress is your property to do with as you please. But it's also pretty much impossible to make a size 4 dress into a size 14 due to the difference in material requirements. OP replies, "I think it is mostly some embroidery that I have that they are interested in using." She had contacted a girl on Instagram who does these flippings. Oh hell no. That is not borrowing the dress, that is gutting it and using it for parts. Not the asshole, especially with the sentimental value from your mum. Oh my god, she was going to go pretty in pink this poor woman's dress. We know how that turned out. Don't do it, OP. Not the asshole. Any sympathy for the daughter goes out the window when she calls you a hag. OP says her exact word usage was worse. OP, I've commented elsewhere, but just wanted to say that you don't deserve this abuse from your daughter. She's engaging in ugly, entitled behavior. It makes me think that her marriage may not be very successful if she's being so mean to her loved ones now. Given that she didn't just call you a hag and she said something worse, absolutely not the asshole for not letting her use your dress. I'm 100% on board with you there, OP. She definitely needs to take some time to herself and mature a bit more, because that is a beautiful wedding dress. That's an intimate memory and a memento to the time that you and your mother shared together, putting this, art piece, I would say, into life. Your daughter is more than welcome to ask to wear it, but size 4 to size 14 is an incredible jump, and it's not going to be the same wedding dress as before, especially since it's mostly some embroidery that you have that they're interested in using, not the whole dress itself. They want a Frankenstein's monster this thing? There is absolutely no respect here for you or your property and the memories that you have associated with the wedding dress. I'm so curious to know what happened during her development that made her such a stuck-up asshole, because truly, I can't believe she even thinks that this is okay to be pushing back like that. And now, onto the update, titled, I refuse to give my wedding dress to my daughter. I found it ripped apart by my daughter's dogs. I spoke to my daughter, and I told her about my love for my dress and the memories that it brought me. My mother passed away not long after my wedding in 2008. She had hidden her illness from me and my siblings because she didn't want to ruin my big day. I thought that I could get through to her. I suggested that we could meet up with a seamstress and make a similar dress, and I could help with the embroidery since it's what takes time and patience, and she agreed. Friday when I was out, my daughter went home to me. She has 2 dogs and they were with her. Anyway, the dress was ruined. According to her, she didn't see anything. She took out the dress to take pictures, and she guessed she left it out, and the dogs ripped it apart. I was shocked when I saw my dress in my bedroom ripped into pieces. I started sobbing, but my daughter said that I was exaggerating like it was her fault when it wasn't. She just shrugged me off and said to go get help because I'm being creepy. My husband asked her to leave. The next day, she blew up my phone crying and saying that she was sorry because she thought that I hated her now because of a dress. I said that I didn't hate her and would never do that. I love her. Later, my sister called me to talk, and she then asked me that now I might as well give the parts that weren't ruined to my daughter so that the dress could at least be useful. I agreed, and my daughter came in the evening to pick up the embroidered parts. She stayed in the car while her fiancé came to pick up the dress. I'm not angry or anything. I just feel terrible sadness. My mother's memory is more than a dress or any material things. She's always in my heart. I just miss her very much all the time. Thank you for listening. In the comments, you are being awfully manipulated. Please find some help. What your daughter did to you with the help of her aunt and fiancé is awful. Don't let them abuse you. You are worth way more than this. Her daughter is very mean towards her about this, and she's putting up with it. Her daughter is a spoiled brat, and with OP's excusing and ignoring such cruel behavior, I can see why she turned into such a spoiled brat. OP needs to actually set consequences for her daughter's behavior. Yeah, the daughter is horrid. It would be wild to believe that she just left the dress out for a little bit, turned around, and they ripped it apart just like that without her noticing that anything was amiss. 1, while it was happening, or 2, before she left the house. Such extremes would have to be true for this, like she was called outside to assist with a medical emergency, and drained, just called the dogs to the car afterwards. Or she was hit by fast onset diarrhea and was in the bathroom for an hour. There is just no reasonable explanation for her dogs to rip apart a dress without her noticing anything. The sounds? Her dogs not being with her while she was also not with the dress for an extended period of time? No way I buy this. And then to callously shrug it off, and worse, to say that the mum needed to get help for being creepy because she was crying? Classic projection. The daughter is mean and vile towards her mom. But it is her fault. She is literally the reason why it was destroyed. And honestly, feels like she did it on purpose. How long did she leave the dog out with the dress? Do her dogs have a habit of destroying clothes? I have dogs, and while my dogs may try to sleep on my clothes, they do not. They've not ripped up my clothes. Lost Ad says, I had 2 wedding dresses. One was vintage and too small. Neither of my dogs paid attention to them. Ripping fabric is loud when dogs are being rambunctious. Having my dogs at my mother's, I am hypervigilant of everything they do. She did this intentionally. And wedding gowns are usually made with decent quality materials. There's a reason that OP's dress was still in good condition after 16 years. That and proper storage. That fabric tearing is loud, even tulle and other thinner fabrics. Source used to be a bridal consultant. I've seen so many brides cry and fall in love with their dresses. Knowing how much more sentimental this one was for OP, I am so upset for her. Am I the only one who figures the daughter ripped up the dress and blamed her dogs? There is no way that a dog stops short of salvaging the pieces that she wants. Too convenient. No, for real. Because how come it's in pieces, but she's still able to salvage embroidery and detail work? When dogs shred, it is shredding time. Are we sure she didn't just cut it up and move it somewhere and claimed that the dogs did it? In case OP sees this, I'm sorry. Can you salvage some pieces and sew it into a pillowcase or a bag or something else that you can hold on to? Yes, OP. Save what you can. I had my wedding dress cut up and made into a baptism gown for my kids to wear and still have quite a bit left. I figure in the future I could use some of it to have a veil made for my daughters, or a pillow for rings for my son's weddings, or a teddy bear for future grandchildren. There are seamstresses who do this. Ain't no way that it wasn't her that did this one. How do you perfectly rip up the dress and everything gets destroyed, except the bits that she wants? And she's still more than happy to be like, hey, I'm just gonna take the bits that we can salvage. Yeah, I'm still really happy to use these parts, even though my dogs completely ate the dress. I'm not even gonna give you the dignity of coming inside. I'm just going to tell my fiancé to come and grab the pieces that I need, and I'm going to be in the car. He's going to know specifically and exactly what I need, though, and there's going to be no apologies made. OP, I'm not blaming you for her behavior, but I can kind of see how it's happened and how she's gotten so confident here. As those other commenters have said, why were there no consequences for her actions? Why did you flatten out into a doormat for her? Why did she even have contact with the dress if she put her intention out there to, recycle your dress, just bits of it? If it were me in this situation, she wouldn't be touching the dress in the first place. But if she had touched the dress and this had happened, there would be smackdown consequences. I'm talking about we're burning that bridge when we get to it. Ain't no way you're getting away with this without some punishment. Like, Jesus Christ, who do you think you are? Our next post is by user FairSun7357, titled, My granddad ate one of my weed brownies 10 minutes ago. I'm freaking out. Do I call the ER? Will I go to jail? I'm visiting my grandparents for the whole week, and I brought my brownies and my pen to the house to last the week. I kept the brownies sealed in my bag, but I accidentally left the bag in the kitchen, and I guess my granddad found it. I walked into the living room, and there he is eating one of my brownies and sipping tea. I'm legit freaking out. What do I do? I'm only 19. I live at home and my family hates weed. My anxiety is skyrocketing. Do I just tell my granddad that it's weed and take it the hard way? Is it safe for older people to eat a brownie? I'm from Denmark. Sorry for the bad English. Edit. Right now it's 35 minutes since he ate it, and it hasn't hit yet. I'm still on the verge of whether or not to tell him, but I don't think you guys understand the trouble that I would be in. Weed is also illegal over here in Denmark. I will provide updates, but right now I need to calm down and figure out a solution. In the comments, I Need Help 57 says, it's safe. Hell, old people sometimes are the biggest consumers of weed. Certainly tell him though. He's in zero physical danger, so going to the ER would be pointless. Probs would be best off just trying to get sleep before it hits. Take a Benadryl or something. And OP says, weed is illegal here, and my grandparents would freak out if they found out that it's weed. Not to talk about the world of trouble that I would be in. You will be in so much more trouble if he thinks he needs the damn hospital. I know you're gonna get in trouble, but you've got to bite the bullet and tell him that he's gonna be okay, but he ate one of your brownies, and he needs to prepare for a head rush and probably sleep. It'll be kinda like being drunk or something, but you can't not tell him. And OP says, I know you're right. Maybe it's best to see how it affects him, and if he's tripping out, then I could tell him? Sorry, man. I know it seems catastrophic to get caught, but don't F over your gramps. You've got to tell him, especially not knowing how strong your full brownie is. Make some excuse like you'd never smoked weed, but your friends made you brownies to nibble on to help you sleep, and it was a major F-up to leave them out. Gotta own up, and hopefully being mature about it lessens their freakouts. Edit 2. 3 hours later. Let me try to wrap my head around what has happened. First of all, I took your guys' advice and told him. And also, thank you guys. I wouldn't have had the balls to tell him if it wasn't for some of the comments. I'm also aware that I'm an irresponsible idiot. Don't worry. Him and my grandma were sitting watching TV 45-ish minutes after he ate the brownie, and I asked him to talk one-on-one about some art homework. I sat down in his home office, and I asked him if he felt weird after eating my brownie. Not at all. Why are you asking? He said, in a confused tone. I basically told him straight up that my friend from school made marijuana brownies and gave me some, but I was going to throw them out. He didn't believe me for a second, and it was obvious, but he quickly put 2 and 2 together and realized that he had just consumed weed and was going to be high. I told him that it can take a while for it to hit him, but it isn't dangerous, and it's probably best if he goes to sleep, and please not tell Grandma or anyone else for that matter. What happened next is such a mindfuck. I knew my grandpa was an artist and a painter, and I guess an old hippie, but I didn't expect him to straight up tell me that he has smoked weed plenty of times, and also taken edibles. He told me about the times that he would hide from my grandma to go smoke, and how it helped him with his art. He told me that he used weed to expand his consciousness for his art projects and for his paintings. He told me that I was a little shit for leaving the brownies out like that, but he was smiling the entire time, and I felt like he kinda liked that I was getting into weed for some reason. We sat down and talked about everything for 30 minutes, and when my grandma came in the room, we would both shush her away. I really felt like I connected with my grandpa during this conversation. Now, I don't know if it's because he was already high, but he told me that he couldn't feel a thing. He told me and my grandma to not disturb him while he goes working in his office. He's been there for the past 60 minutes, and he definitely feels it. Jazz music is on his speakers, he's lighting up his cigars, and when I peeked my head in there, he was closing his eyes and really feeling the music. I think my grandma thinks he's been drinking a little bit, and told me to give him his space. I'll update tonight to let you guys know how things progress. And now, onto the final update. Final update for you guys. I appreciate all the comments from the good, wholesome ones and the bad ones calling me a piece of shit. I deserve it, and I own up to my mistakes. I was lucky this time. Anyways, my granddad basically just chilled in his office, and I brought him water to make sure he was good. His eyes were absolutely blazed, and he had a big smile on his face. I haven't seen him lighten up like that in my entire life. He seemed thankful for the experience. Anyways, I left him alone and he joined us at dinner. He handled it pretty well. He was talkative, cracking jokes, and my grandma definitely thinks he's drunk, but she hasn't said much. It's after dinner now, and we're just chilling together, me and my granddad. We're talking about life and spirituality and weed. Lots of weed talk. He wants to know all of my high stories, and we're laughing away. He is still baked out of his mind, but I must say, he's taking it well. These are hash brownies. They hit like a horse. I can definitely say that it's been one of my weirdest days so far. What started in pure paranoia is now ending in what I would say almost too good to be true. My granddad knows I smoke and is cool with it. I became so much closer to him, and it's like we're buddies now. My grandmum is confused about how we suddenly are bonding so well. Maybe she needs a brownie? All jokes aside, I'll be here until Saturday, and I'm already fantasizing about smoking a joint with my old man. But for now, let's have him ride this one out first. I wouldn't have handled this the way that I did without your comments. Reddit, you saved me today. Legends. In the comments, Darth Hippler says, "This must be the most wholesome story that I've read this year." And OP says, "Looking back this morning, it definitely is a moment that I will never forget, and a fun story to tell my future kids." And now, on to the final update, titled, "I am that guy who accidentally gave his granddad a hash brownie. Here is how the following days went." 2 days ago, my granddad found my brownies in the kitchen and ate them by mistake. I rushed into this subreddit for advice and ended up telling him what he had consumed. Little did I know that he was a stoner back in the days, and we ended up connecting deeply that night. You can read the post and updates on my profile. Anyways, here is how the following days have went for anyone interested. My granddad went to bed early that night and everything was cool as expected. The following days was so much different from what I've seen of my granddad. He seemed so alive. He seemed so creative all of a sudden in his thinking and expression of words. Also, our relationship has certainly been closer these couple of days, which is pretty cool. The following day, at night, I asked him if he wanted to smoke a joint with me later this week, and, not surprisingly, he told me he would definitely hit it after Grandma's asleep. I'm thinking about taking a picture of us smoking and uploading it with his permission. Will be such a memory to have. In the comments, Junior Jackfruit says, "Awesome story, but I'd suggest keeping the photo to yourself. It'll be your memory. Keep it close. No need to share with random internet strangers." Yes, we share your joy, OP. No pressure to prove it with a picture. As much as I'd like to see this dude's grandpa blazed out of his mind, I agree. Not everything needs to be shared online. Last thing Gramps needs is grandma perusing Reddit and finding that photo. A few years ago, my dad and I got high together for the first time. I'm in my 40s and he's in his 70s. It was a really great experience that I'll remember forever. He wasn't in my life much when I was a kid, but the nut doesn't fall far from the tree, it seems. I'm happy for you that this mistake has turned out so well for you. This reminds me of the one time my mum unknowingly got drunk. She had recently moved in with us. We had a small party. I think we were hosting a friend's birthday and everyone else lived in apartments. Anyway, a friend brought Jell-O shots. My mum just thought that they were dessert cups. We have no idea how many she had, but she kept going on about how it was the best Jell-O that she's ever had, and she was in an awesome mood. My mum, who doesn't drink, once asked a bartender at an event if they had any iced tea. The dude says that they have Long Island iced tea, and she had 2. Luckily, my dad drove that night. Lol, it's cute that he didn't think that his artist grandpa had ever dabbed. The drug equivalent of, they were just roommates. So, art rooms have more than one purpose? This reminds me of when my family saw my grandmother smoke a J like it was nothing and be like, "What? I was an adult in the 70s?" This post warmed my former stoner heart. My kids are all in their 30s now. They would have had heart attacks if I ever told them that in my youth, my friends and I would get together every night with a bag of pot, papers, and a roller. We'd start at one end of the line, roll, light, puff, and pass. The person at the end got the roach. Of course, in those days, we didn't have bud. It was all ditchweed from Mexico. But yeah, like your grandmother, I was an adult in the 70s. Am I wrong for spending way less than planned on an engagement ring that met her once? So I've been with my now fiancé for about 4 years, living together for 2. About 5 months ago, we had a talk around timeline and decided that 2024 will be the year that we get engaged. She told me she wants me to pick the ring, but gave me some styles that she likes. I picked a ring that was my favorite of the type that she sent me, and to my surprise, it was a lot cheaper than I expected. In my head, I budgeted about $10,000, but it was only about $3,500. Thank you, Lab Diamonds. The jeweler that I bought it from has a great reputation and has been around for 40 years, so it's not like I cheaped out with a sketchy store, by the way. She absolutely loved the ring and has been happy to show it off to her friends who have also had good feedback. A couple of nights ago, she asked me what it costs, and because we're going to be married and finances are so important, I told her. She expressed a lot of disappointment, which is weird to me because it resembles exactly a type that she sent me. I just didn't get it from that brand because they had bad reviews. The same ring could have easily costed $6,500 from that company, or if I went with a mined diamond, it would have been around $12,000. She just said that she expected me to spend more based on my income of $160K. She said that while she didn't expect me to go the dated 3 months pay route, she was a little disappointed that I basically spent less than one total paycheck. Aside from this, she's always been very fiscally responsible and thrifty, so this caught me off guard. I have to say, this is killing my recently engaged buzz, but maybe she's right, I don't know. We're not fighting or anything, but this went from really excited to be engaged to her seeming sad and me starting to look at her in a worse light. I hope we get past it soon and have a fun weekend, but would love advice on how to handle things or if I should just move on from this and wait for her to get over it. Edit to add, people are going too far here. She's not a gold digger, she barely makes less than me and made more than I did the first 2 years we were dating. I'm just going to have a conversation with her tonight, and I'm sure we'll be good again. Some of you should go outside and touch grass more, or talk to a therapist about your contempt for women. I'm logging out of this now. In the comments, Mutual Butt Squeezin' says, she was happy with it until she learned it cost only $3,500. Oh no, only $3,500? You only spent one whole paycheck? However will she survive with only $3,500 on her finger? And if she wants blood diamonds instead of lab, that's a whole other red flag. Her ring is worth more than my effing car. Get a good prenup. OP says, she never said she wanted a blood diamond. If she wants a prenup, she can request one. There is no point from my side. I only make about $10K more than her, but she has more savings than I do, and neither of us own property. I had student loans and didn't make a ton my first few years out of college. Her parents paid for her college, and she made more out the gate than me. I didn't pass her an income until 2 years into us dating. This is one kinda shitty reaction. If this isn't a pattern for her, I'd try to let it go. Some of these comments are wild. You definitely aren't wrong for spending less. She probably just had an idea in her head that value equals quality, and it took her by surprise. She'll get over it. OP says, it's not a pattern, I'm just going to let this blow over. People are calling her a gold digger, but that's definitely not the case. She has more money saved up than me, and made more than I did the first half of our relationship. I think Reddit was the wrong place to ask this. And when has she ever spent $3,500 on you? This is some BS sexist shit. I'd be tempted to take it back. OP says, I've literally never asked her to, lol, so I wouldn't expect her to. Both of us wanted to follow the tradition of the man buying the engagement ring. I'm not taking it back. I'll just have a conversation with her tonight about it. I barely use Reddit, and this post has been a good reminder why. Lots of guys here who clearly don't do well with women. Competitive Sleep says, I would be super honest with her about your feelings. Find out why she's acting like this. As a woman, my guess is that she's thinking that he doesn't love her enough to value her as much as a single paycheck. Is that rational thinking? Hell no. But do I sometimes get caught up in my emotions and insecurity and worry that I can't trust my own judgment, and maybe all the love and affection that my significant other has shown me over the years was all a figment of my imagination and he actually doesn't love me at all? Unfortunately, and embarrassingly, yes. Fear can sometimes overrule rationality by a long shot. So I totally agree. Tell her about how you feel. Emphasize that you really wanted to make sure that you got what she wanted because her happiness means so much to you, and that you want to make sure that she went to a reputable dealer so that she got the best of the best. You also know that she values price tag, etc. Basically, tell her that you would have spent 3 times what you did if that's what it took to get her the ring that she wanted. But you got lucky, and it doesn't matter how much the ring costs, as long as she likes it. Maybe confirm with her that she does, as I'm sure she does. Because being able to have her as a wife is priceless. Oh my god, the people on this thread are wild. Your fiancé has some weird and irrational feelings because she has an unstated expectation that wasn't met. She probably knows that these feelings don't make sense, and it's good that she trusted you enough to share. It seems likely that in some little nook of her brain, the amount of money spent signifies something. How much you care about her, the quality of the ring, whatever. And even if she knows that it's not true, she might have feelings about it. I highly suggest having a relaxed conversation where you can both talk about what feelings are coming up. Don't just let it blow over. You'll miss an opportunity to get to know and understand each other better. I would be sure to share exactly why you picked the ring, not because it's cheap, but because you did your research. I think that will help a lot. I would also assume that she feels this way because women are taught to believe that the cost of the ring is somehow proportional to the amount of love, not because she is inherently materialistic. Give each other both some grace and you'll be fine. Yeah, I hate being the guy on Reddit who's telling you to bounce, but I'd be careful with future expectations from this woman. When I proposed to my ex-fiancé, she was ecstatic. She loved the ring. She showed it off to everyone. Not once did she ask how much it cost. Not only did my wife not ask what the ring cost, but specifically said she doesn't want to know. She loves it and me, and that's enough, she has said. You guys already know that I got angry at an OP for just yelling at everyone to touch grass before, so I'll lay off that aspect of this one because so many people in that video were just like, Marky, you're the one that needs to touch grass, mate. What are you attacking them for? I get it. I'm trapped in this voiceover box all day. Grass doesn't exist in my reality, okay? It's just weird that every time someone had something to say, the OP always capped it off with, "What's wrong with you? You're not saying the things that I want you to say. Go touch grass. You've got warped brain disorder." But no, OP, as per the topic of this discussion, I don't think you're wrong for spending way less than planned on an engagement ring that did meet her once. I don't know where her reaction is coming from. This feels like something that you guys need to talk about a bit more. Ain't that right, guys? Communication is king. Hell yeah. And now, onto the update. Update not even 24 hours later. We talked through things last night. First, I want to say to everyone calling her a gold digger, that is so stupid. She has more savings than me, made more than me the first half of our relationship, and will inherit significant money from her family, while I certainly will not. If she's a gold digger, she is very bad at it. She also told me when we discussed timeline, she wanted a lab diamond to be sure that nobody was hurt over it. So no need to say that she wanted a blood diamond either. Not sure where that came from, but lots of people here seem to insist that she wanted someone to die over it. I don't think either of us realized how much cheaper lab diamonds have gotten in just the last couple of years. Now to the actual update. Last night we had a sushi takeout and wine night, and I told her how her response made me feel. She was extremely apologetic and told me she felt awful all day at work about it and was thinking of how to apologize. She said she realizes her feelings made no sense, it's just that it can get ingrained in women's heads that their long-term boyfriend is going to make that sacrifice and spend a lot of their money, and there's romance associated with it. But logically it's stupid and makes no sense. We want to buy a house together when our lease is up, and she brought up how it's great the ring costs less than expected so that we can put more towards that. We're all good. Thanks for the people with the reasonable advice. There were a lot of other responses and PMs that I got from people who don't seem to have much real relationship experience. But I'm going to ignore y'all, lol. Peace out, everyone. In the comments, JL the Professor says, "You guys have a healthy relationship. The mobs on Reddit have no idea what they're talking about half the time." OP says, "Yeah, I have a feeling about half the comments had never been in a relationship for over a year." Typical, I want curtains white and she wants them baby blue. Reddit, OMFG, go to therapy and divorce her, red flags all around. Open and honest communication saves the day yet again. I'm really glad the expectation around engagement rings is changing. Can't believe 3-month salary was ever a thing, and still is for some people. My moissanite engagement ring was $600, and I thought even that was a lot. I understand that an engagement ring needs to be high quality and last for life, but that doesn't require tens of thousands of dollars. I got a lab-created pink sapphire for mine, and it was under $200. I told my husband in no uncertain terms, if he spent more than that, I would lose my mind. I hate expensive jewelry because I feel that money could be better spent elsewhere. I'd be so paranoid walking around with the value of a car just chilling on my finger. I love my ring. I just don't get spending thousands upon thousands of dollars on something so useless. Our next post is by user Unusual Capital 9083, titled, "Am I the asshole here for not caring about my wife's affair?" Throwaway account. My 29 male, wife 29 female, has been having an affair for 2 years, and I've been aware of it pretty much the whole time. We've been together 7 years and married for 5. We don't have kids, I have been work from home since COVID hit, and for the last 3+ years, she's been a secretary in a large office building. Now, I'm not going to pretend like we had the perfect marriage 2 years ago, and that I can't believe that she would do this. I was totally complacent in my life, and really wasn't putting much effort into our relationship at all. That doesn't excuse what she did, and she had her own issues with intimacy and communication that led us to where we were then. I just want it clear that I'm no saint in all of this. I totally understand that we were basically roommates that on rare occasions had sex. Well, I found out right away when the emotional affair started. I've got all of our everything logged into every device we have, including my work computer. I mean synced email, text, photos, social media, etc. So I was basically reading her affair regularly, including when it became a physical affair about 4 weeks in. Dude, why didn't you do anything then? It's just cuck fantasy at that point, isn't it? The part that told me that this was over, though, was I felt nothing about this. I was totally indifferent. Maybe a little bit embarrassed at worst. When the physical affair started 2 years ago, I recognized this marriage was dead and that I should just divorce, mostly because I felt nothing. I started looking into lawyers and figured that we could just do this easy and amicably. Well, here's where the crazy part happens. When the emotional affair started, she seemed, I wouldn't say happy, but less sad. Then the weekend after the physical affair started, I got the shock of my life. She came into my office that Saturday morning and asked me to take her on a hike and picnic. Initially, I thought that this is the moment to burst her bubble and reveal what I know, but I didn't. I decided to actually get up and do this. I kind of thought that she was going to reveal it herself and ask for a divorce. We had a real nice time. It was a great day, and she never brought up anything. I chalked it up as one more good memory before we end this thing. Then she asked me out again that week. Then we had intimacy. I don't know if it was shame or guilt or what, but she was basically taking the initiative to improve our marriage. After that first week, she began to open up more about her feelings. I, for some reason, had a fire lit under me and started to make some effort in our relationship, started reconnecting with some old friends, got all the laundry off the gym equipment, and the affair continued. But as we spent more time together over those early weeks, and since it really gave me no concern and everything seemed better, I decided to just forget about it and divorcing her and just started enjoying my life. I do still love this woman very much. Up until 2 days ago, we were in a really solid place. We had outings every other weekend, date night Thursday, regular intimacy and communication. I don't even read their messages anymore, just occasionally to see if it's still going on. 2 days ago, I noticed that she was having frequent and long conversations with one of her close friends. I asked my wife about it, and it turns out this friend's husband got caught having an affair. My wife has been comforting her. This would not have been a big deal, but my wife then started bashing the husband for cheating. I don't know why I said it, but it came out. You're one to judge. She got super defensive and pressing me for why I said that. I initially tried to apologize and move on, but she wasn't letting up, and I eventually spilled that I've known about her affair the whole time. She tried to play dumb, which annoyed me, so I started citing specifics. She then got really mad at me, started crying, accusing me of not caring about her. I got pissed, then started yelling at her, because I'm not the one having an affair. It got heated, and we went into separate rooms and slept it off. Yesterday morning, she got up extra early and went to work before I got up. I tuned back into their messages, and she had broken up with the affair partner. He was messaging her constantly on every app, and she just kept blocking him. She came home early yesterday. I went to talk to her, and she just stopped, looked at me and asked, "How could you let this go on?" And I replied, "Because I just didn't care." She then called me a huge asshole and locked herself in our bedroom until she left for work this morning. She got home tonight, said nothing to me, and then locked herself in again. I can't even imagine in what bizarro world I could possibly have been the asshole in this situation. Is there a perspective out there where I am? And if so, please share it with me, because in my mind, there isn't. Quick update. She came to me at about 12:30 last night. We had a pretty deep discussion that felt incomplete. We were both exhausted and emotional. We promised to continue today when she got home from work. I'll post an update either late tonight or tomorrow morning. I'm not 100% on where we stand right now, but the tone was somewhat optimistic. At the same time, I don't want to give an incomplete update. I haven't shown her this post yet, but I will tonight. Thanks for all the responses so far. I'm seeing more and more how poorly that I have handled the situation. In the comments, RNGINX3 says, "The lion, the witch, and the audacity of this beer." In all seriousness though, everyone sucks here. You should have just pulled the plug. You should have put more effort into this marriage in the first place. She should have pulled the plug before cheating, but she sounds like that woman that got mad because her husband doesn't get jealous. Jealousy is not a desirable trait, it's toxic, and does not prove how much they love you. OP says, "I didn't even think of that. I expected her to get defensive when it all came out, and honestly, I thought she would break down and beg for forgiveness. I didn't expect this. So your idea about her valuing jealousy might just be right. If I can get her to talk to me, I'll probably bring this up." I think she was just lashing out because she knew that she was busted and didn't want to admit that she was the one in the wrong. And OP replies, "I don't think you're wrong. I kind of expected a little backlash if the day ever came. I just didn't expect the knee-jerk reaction, breakup with the affair partner, and the hard cold shoulder towards me. I honestly thought that we would have a lot of deep conversations about it all, and this has been the opposite." Okay, so gonna take a different approach than others here. First, you aren't the asshole here. However, where I think you messed up was when she asked you, "How could you let this go on?" You should have said, "At first, I didn't care. I realized I lost you. However, after that day, you asked me for a picnic. How were things different between us? Better? I made changes and you made changes. I thought we were starting to fall back in love." At least that's what I think I should have said by reading your post. That is the feeling I got. But instead of her acknowledging that she effed up, she went on the defensive, and of course you had every right to blow up and call her out for her BS. Maybe try sitting her down and telling her what you told us here in your post. I can't say if it'll help or fix, but maybe it can repair by what appears in your post that you are starting to be both happy again. Best of luck. OP says, "Ugh, you've stung me a bit. I keep saying I don't care. Maybe that's what has her triggered, because a few years ago, it would have been hard for me to find evidence that I cared about anything. Also, she must have known that everything was synced on all your devices. It kind of seems like she wanted you to know about the affair. Was she doing it just to provoke you? Like, did she have the affair to get you to notice her?" OP says, "Lots have said that. It's a possibility. I know I wasn't present in our lives when it started, so it may just have been to feel seen. I don't know about the devices. She really just uses her phone, and I use my phone and the tablet and the computer. I could see her knowing they are synced, but also not really thinking about them being synced, if that makes sense. Kinda like how everyone knows milk goes bad, but don't realize that it's gone bad until they take the lid off. Not the asshole. But telling her you just didn't care put her in a funny place against the guilt that she's been feeling and the attempt to rediscover your relationship, but most definitely not the asshole. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And it's always so much worse for the cheater. They expect rage, and then boom, they didn't even care at all, really F's with them. Most affairs come from low self-esteem. They need more validation than a relationship can give them. It's very immature to seek outside confirmation of your value rather than just working on yourself. So to cheat because you're not sure that you're good enough, only to have that seemingly confirmed when you're discovered, is a double blow. This isn't excusing cheating. Hopefully nobody will read it like that, but if you can understand someone's underlying motivation, you can sometimes understand their seemingly unusual actions. Edit. Wrote this not expecting many people to see it, so it's quite broad and generalizes a lot, but now it's been upvoted, more people are seeing it, and it's hurt some of them because they feel that it doesn't reflect their situation. Being cheated on is super shit. I'm so very sorry for unintentionally triggering people with this comment. You deserve so much better, and I hope you've already found it. I'm going to leave it unedited because others are saying that it's helped them, and also feel that it's true in a general sense. Emphasis on general. There are clearly loads of exceptions, and more than a few sociopaths out there. I don't even know what to say about this one. Like, I don't think you're an asshole here for not caring about your wife's affair, but I don't know why you didn't do anything sooner and call her out and try and, resolve it before it got to that point. That's just so weird and alien to me because I've never really seen that before in these stories. I think you both need to talk this one through, and you probably both need therapy to kind of discover where this weird reaction of yours is coming from, and then work on the relationship together if that's what you both want. It's not what I would want personally, but I'm not in your shoes. And now, onto the update. First off, I appreciate everyone's comments on the original post, except those of you that just get on and throw insults. You need therapy more than anyone on this whole sub. If you missed the original post, you can see it in my profile. I decided against showing the post or any comments. Instead, I used it to organize my thoughts and points. Our conversations I'm going to share below in no way were linear. We jumped around in topic, talking this, which led to that, only to come back to this, reveal that, and so on. So I'm going to just try and put it all together as coherently as possible. Like I said in a comment on the other post, my wife finally came out at around 12:30 a.m. Friday and joined me on the couch in my office. She curled in next to me and just cried for a solid 15 to 20 minutes, and we were just silent otherwise. When she was ready, we began talking until we were worn out. We picked that up again last night, which was also taxing. We finally finished up, for now, this morning. This includes long spells of crying, hysterical bonding, and a phone call to the affair partner while I listened, and he was aware of that. The start of the affair was pretty cliché. Flirty small talk, makes her feel good, escalates, becomes messaging and sharing personal details, and eventually to kissing. Probably don't need to explain the rest of the escalation from there. Nah, come on, go on. I'm kidding. We talked a lot about what got her to that point. She remembers it seemed like nothing she did could get my attention. I agreed with this completely. I also stated, though, that I don't remember too many attempts. She acknowledged that she wasn't very forthcoming in those days. Always hinting at what she wanted, and not just outright saying it. There wasn't any one moment, she said, that broke the camel's back, just a collection of times. When the affair partner came into the picture, the validation was intoxicating, especially in contrast to years of neglect. However, she said she felt a ton of guilt and shame. She was in the same spot that I was when it started, assuming we would just divorce, as we were largely just roommates at that point. The hike and picnic was supposed to be the last bit of assurance that our marriage was over. She did not expect me to agree to go, or for it to be such a pleasant time. From that point, we started reconnecting, and she made the decision to make the effort as long as I kept making the effort. She opened up more, and I was responding, and that got us to where we've been the last 2 years. As to why she didn't end it with the affair partner once I was back, she admitted that she was just being selfish. She kept telling herself that she would do it, but didn't actually want to. I was planning dates, listening, and back to initiating intimacy often. He doted on her and validated her. She had the best of everything. Eventually, she just convinced herself what I didn't know didn't hurt me. This makes her feel stupid, knowing that I knew the whole time. We talked about my surveillance, and she said that she's having trouble getting over this and feels betrayed. I didn't give her any excuses. It came up because she did ask how I knew, and I told her that she's been logged into our old desktop/my work computer on her email, Insta, Facebook, etc. for years, as well as it being connected to our cloud. I owned up to how wrong this was, but we both agreed that if we're going to make the reconciliation work, we're going to have to forgive each other for a lot of things. As many said, and were right about, my I don't care statement was extremely triggering and hurtful. It took her right back to where we used to be. I took advice and organized my thoughts and told her that it wasn't that I don't care. I care about her immensely and changed for the better these last 2 years because I wanted to be there for her. I then explained that I should have said, "It doesn't bother me." She's still trying to wrap her head around this. I'm trying to explain how I just basically don't feel jealousy or insecurity, which is hard to put into words. It also causes a mix of emotions on her end. I told her that having her be happy again made everything worth it for me. Also, the affair got me off my ass for the first time in years, so in a way, I've kind of told myself that it was a blessing these past years. Finally, to address the breakup with affair partner, she said once it was out, she went into a doom spiral thinking everything in her life was a sham. She felt guilty over everything. She cut him loose and locked me out. She was basically beating herself up for being awful to the both of us. Listening to her call with him was hard even for me. From what she'd told me in our conversations and the call, I'm pretty convinced that he was or is in love with her. I think he was holding out hope that we would divorce at some point. She laid it out for him that we would not, and we're going to do everything to make this marriage work. He didn't beg or degrade himself, but seemed genuinely hurt. When the call ended, she re-blocked him and stated that she has to go no contact so he can heal and actually go find someone and we can fix our issues. We are working out our plans to fix our marriage. Not totally sure where to go from here. She wants individual counseling for herself, so we will make that happen, and then after she's done that for a while, we'll probably start marriage counseling. We also are going to symbolically fresh start, and I'm going to get a new work computer. From there, it's being open and honest with each other every day, and making sure that we are being present in our lives. I love this woman very much, and want to make this work. Now, to address some of the other questions, sorry to all the poly/ethical non-monogamy people. We did not discuss this. She never called herself anything other than a cheater or unfaithful. I don't have the emotional bandwidth to bring this up right now, so if this is ever discussed, it'll be down the road. I've never been tested for autism or depression or anything really. I've always been stoic and was raised that men don't show emotion, only when appropriate. I seriously doubt I have any underlying undiagnosed mental health issue. I've never been much of a feelings person, but I'm good in a social scene and understand societal norms. Some people just don't feel as deeply as everyone else seems to. I don't know if this is the update that everyone wanted, but it's where we are at today. Might be somewhat totally different tomorrow, but right now all I can do is take it a day at a time. I'm going to offer some clarification since the main hang-up, aside from the incels obsessed with the word cuck, oh no! Is that my wife said she felt betrayed. The reality of our conversations is that they are 90% her self-deprecating and begging for forgiveness, talking through her affair, the triggers, the whys, the feelings, and 10% us talking about the parts that I played, the surveillance, my universal apathy or indifference. Honestly, it's like pulling teeth to get her to open up about how my actions made her feel. And I understand why the response is. It's just one of the faults of Reddit communication. I'm here, having these conversations in real time, everyone else is reading a 10-paragraph summary, which is going to make things seem equal or one-sided. I understand when responding, you only have the issue in front of you, but try to realize there is more than just what's typed. In the comments, Neanderbeast says, "Thank you for the update. I hope you both, more her it seems, are able to work it out. Are you going to have any individual counseling yourself? Your emotional status sounds like mine, but I attributed it to childhood abuse." And OP says, "I might, not planning currently to. I was never abused. I'm just like this." Whoa, a happy ending for once? OP says, hopefully. Lol? The audacity for her to feel betrayed while she was being dicked down by some other guy? It's not even funny. It's remarkably sad at how pathetic it is. It's pretty normal for cheaters. I'm screwing someone else, but feel betrayed because you were suspicious and decided to find out that you weren't crazy. This is the woman who flamed her friend's husband for cheating when she was doing the same thing. She is a hypocrite and would have kept her affair had you not informed her that you knew. She is not regretful that she cheated, but that she got caught. Good luck, OP. My ex did exactly that. Tell me how her friend was cheating on her boyfriend and how she didn't approve of it. I didn't keep my mouth shut for 2 years like OP, but only 2 hours. Still, felt incredibly ironic to have her say such things. Unlike OP though, when I brought it up, she accused me of making things up, followed by calling me insecure, to finally just shutting me off and refusing to address it. I miss the person that I thought she was. Sure as hell don't miss the person she actually was, though. Was he legitimately sitting there watching her affair go down in real time, like the world's most depressing Netflix binge? I guess that's how numb he was at the time. Probably needs to see a therapist too. Hey, come on, he said he doesn't think he has any undiagnosed or underlying mental illnesses. He says he's fine, no abuse, no problems, just stoic. And I can't imagine being married to someone who just seems so emotionally grey, just bland and almost unfeeling. I hope he does get individual counseling and explore things a bit more. Not to be an armchair psychologist, but this guy strikes me as being really depressed. I could be wrong, sure, but in any event, I hope he gets help. Also an armchair psychologist, but he strikes me as someone who grew up in an emotionally neglectful household, like parents that don't abuse you, meet your material needs, but that's it. These kids grow up feeling like there's a void inside them and struggle to build emotional intimacy with others. And yeah, he sounds pretty depressed too. Hey guys, Incel Marky here with the cuck fantasy story. Sorry about that one. OP just had to attack me for my knee-jerk reaction. I must not understand enough about marriages and relationships because I could never see myself repairing the marriage from there on. That doesn't seem like something that you should logically repair in this situation. She's cheated, lied, and then puts a lot of that on you. She doesn't seem like a good partner to me, and him being so grey, I don't know about all that, Chief. As I've said in previous videos, glad that that's not my life personally, but I'm happy for them if they're able to make that work. Anyway guys, that's where I'm going to end today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed. I also hope you have a good day, night's sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Our neighbor is a crazy drug addict who has multiple restraining orders against him, but since his parents own the apartment, the HOA can only fine him. We also own our own apartment for context. Our neighbor downstairs, and one over to us, has had mental health issues for years, and apparently is a drug user as well. A few years ago, he attacked our neighbor in the next building with a bat and spent some time in jail. Things were quiet for a while when he got out, but then he started using again and alienated both his sister and his parents, who have since moved out of the apartment and abandoned him, but continue to pay rent and any fines the HOA levies against him. We are all terrified of him. He screams at everyone and bangs his apartment so badly, it makes the whole building shake. There's a text thread between my significant other and I and 3 of our neighbors every time he goes off, where we rotate who calls the police every time he does go off. He screamed at my 4-year-old and made him cry one day, and the other day he screamed at me while I was carrying my 5-month-old. I'm so scared that he's going to attack us or my children. He's surrounded by 2 other families, and they are both scared of him too. We've talked to the HOA repeatedly, but they all say they really can only implement fines on a graduated schedule. So he received a $400 fine yesterday and an $800 fine today, but I get the feeling that his parents will just pay the fine and then be done with it. Is there anything to do? We've contacted the police so many times that it's not even funny. I'd contact a housing lawyer, but I'm not sure they would tell me anything different than the HOA says. We just want him gone. And if he was a renter, he likely would have been. But since his parents are owners, we just feel stuck. Edit, I found this guy's record. He has 5 misdemeanors, 5 felony cases, look like they got dismissed, and 3 domestic violence cases against his sister and parents. I wouldn't be surprised if his parents are terrified of him, but it's not right that he just gets to live here terrorizing us. In the comments, Red Tiber says, "Damn, you are stuck in a rough place. The HOA doesn't have much powers other than fining them. The police can't do much because the guy hasn't really committed a crime yet, other than maybe some noise ordinances. If you don't do anything, then yeah, he could easily attack your children or husband or any other innocent. The police can arrest him then, but what good does it do if someone is seriously injured or killed? You're just waiting for the inevitable at this point. Even if the parents stop paying the fines, to get them to boot the son out will take time because the son has tenant rights, lol. He'll probably get even more unstable during the eviction process. Damn, I don't know what you can do that's legal. I feel terrible for your predicament. Threatening people should mean getting a restraining order ASAP. Then when he violates it, the cops can do something. Nuisance neighbor laws will allow you to sue the owner of the unit individually in small claims courts to either pay a huge amount or remove the tenant. I understand that it's their kid, but losing a few $100,000 is not the same as an HOA fine. If it is well documented, everyone needs to press this at the same time for full effect with separate court dates, so the parents have to have time off work for each one. Basically, every adult member of the household who lives in the condo can sue for the max in small claims courts. If the strongest documentation units go first, it'll be pretty easy to win. Also, the HOA can change the rules, if properly done, to make consecutive fines greater. You haven't yet contacted the parents and legal guardians? I had some friends go through addiction and mental illness in the past. First thing we did was contact their parents. Family support is 100% needed, but also sometimes, sadly, calling the cops is the only thing that you can do. And now, onto the update. Unfortunately, our update is not a positive one. I paid a consultation fee and talked to a lawyer about what our options were in getting our neighbor to stop terrorizing us. That same day, he threw a bag of garbage at another neighbor and then fled. The lawyer said that we could pursue a restraining order, but it's a 50-50 chance that the judge would grant one. Typically, to grant a restraining order, the behavior needs to meet this threshold. Section 527.6b further defines harassment as a course of conduct which would cause a reasonable person to suffer substantial emotional distress and must actually cause substantial emotional distress to the plaintiff. Since my significant other and I only ever experienced verbal harassment, that could qualify under course of conduct, but this interpretation is usually up to the judge. Since our crazy neighbor threw a trash bag at our other neighbor, that could be considered assault, and if it actually hit her, then it's considered battery. She ended up filing a temporary restraining order the next day. Even still, the only way we could have gotten rid of him was if he violated that restraining order and he got arrested for that violation. Otherwise, that restraining order wouldn't do much. The lawyer did say that it's possible to get a restraining order to protect against verbal harassment, so if he had screamed at us again, that might have been a violation of the RO, and thus he could be arrested. With regards to the absentee parents, he said case law was against us, as typically it is very difficult to hold the parents culpable of the actions of an adult child. The HOA is also not on the hook either. He pointed to one case where a woman had spent years putting curses on other people and then went on to have an episode and killed another tenant. The parents of the tenant tried to sue the HOA for not removing the killer, but the court ruled against them, saying that it was not expected that because the lady was crazy that she would also be violent in such a way to end a person's life. So the next day we resolved to file a restraining order, but it turns out that we didn't need one. Over the weekend, someone, likely his parents, called a wellness check on the apartment. The police apparently checked in at 1 a.m. on Saturday and found the apartment completely ransacked. His body was in the bathroom. I don't know, man. This all sucks. I really wish he could have gotten the help that he needed and that his parents hadn't abandoned him, but likely they were just as afraid of him as we were and didn't want him to be homeless. On the other hand, he was a terrible effing person who terrorized all of us and made us afraid to live near him. After the news came out, our neighbors downstairs expressed how sad but relieved he was, and I can't help to feel the same way. In the comments, Turbatron says, "I feel bad for his parents. Other than that, I'm glad your issue is resolved. Life isn't always fair. Tragic all around, for you and your neighbors, for his parents and for him. Awful." Quotes, "He pointed to the case where a woman had spent years putting curses on other people and then went on to have an episode and killed another tenant. Okay, now I'm really interested in this. There's a woman near me who, ironically, lives next door to a church who advertises services like laying or lifting spells on Facebook. I work in a school and am shocked at the number of students who tell me their parents use her services. This is suburban Melbourne, Australia. I wouldn't have thought that it was common, but apparently it is." Heyo Meatballs says, "When someone who hurt you dies and you feel relieved, that doesn't make you a bad person. You are allowed to be relieved that they can't hurt you or anyone else anymore. It takes a lot for me to wish someone dead. It takes a lot less for me to not shed a tear when they die. Yeah, I don't think I've ever wished someone dead, but there are a couple of people, now out of my life, who I wouldn't piss on if they were on fire, and a couple more whose deaths will come as pleasant news. Mental illness is scary. We like to see sick people cured, but sometimes sick people can be really difficult to be saved. The whole situation is just sad all around, and I do feel bad for the neighbor's parents having to go through all of this, but even with all this happening, at least all the misery is over. I've got at least 3 diagnosed mental illnesses, bipolar type 2, GAD, and PTSD, and I am legitimately terrified of ending up like this awful deceased neighbor. My psychiatrist has told me that my illnesses aren't my fault, but are my responsibility, so I do whatever I can to stay stable, hold down a job, and live a quiet life. I'd be lying if I didn't say that I had nightmares about turning into the neighborhood crazy guy, or worse. I cheated on my wife, and now she's cheating on me. So yeah, I know I messed up. I, 32 male, cheated on my wife, 29 female, 3 years ago. We've been married for 5 years, and the second year of our marriage, I cheated on her in a drunken fling. She forgave me, and we went to marriage counseling. But 3 days ago, while my wife was in the shower, I went through her phone and found the texts confirming that she was cheating. I felt so betrayed, I confronted her after she got out of the shower. She claims that it's okay because I cheated on her and I set the precedent for allowing infidelity. I told her that my cheating was a one-time drunken thing and that I haven't done anything since. I also told her that I don't know the girl and that she now has a relationship with this guy. I don't know. She got mad and stormed off. She left for work on Friday and I haven't seen her since. I know she's with him and it hurts. I feel I deserve this, but at the same time, I want my wife back. What do I do? In the comments, Both Injury says, "The relationship was over the minute that you cheated." And OP replies, "But why would she stay? Why would she forgive me only to do this? I've done nothing but love her. Yeah, like when you cheated on her." And OP says, "She forgave me. I really feel bad, but also at the same time, it wasn't really my fault. It was the alcohol. She has no excuse. If she loved you, she wouldn't have left you. You get that she's gone, right? Like, not coming back. And also, your friends or alcohol do not control your actions. The only person who does that is you. So if you want further relationships to work out and not lose another wife later in life, learn one thing: how to take personal responsibility for your own actions. You cheated, and now she cheated, but the big difference is she has a million options with the rest of her dating life, and you don't. So maybe act like an effing grown-up about it, and stop acting like you were the victim in all of this. OP replies, I get that I have some blame, but after I've cheated, I've been the best husband. I quit drinking for her, I don't go to parties for her. I don't deserve this though. OP, this marriage is dead, so you divorce. Oh no, not at all. First, kids will solve their problems. The extra stress and sleepless nights will allow them to refocus on their love. Second, they can open their relationship and engage in ethical non-monogamy simply by being honest with each other. Third, I don't have a third. Everything is looking rosy for this lovely couple. This is not serious in any way. They should divorce. 1. Clearly she didn't forgive you. And 2. You were 29 years old and cheated on your wife, not 18 years old getting drunk for the first time at college. You aren't listening to people here. It's not hard to imagine that you don't listen to your wife in person. That doesn't excuse her cheating, of course, but goddamn, OP. If you and your wife decided to try and repair your marriage, it will require work. But it honestly sounds like you have some growing up to do before you're ready for marriage. Back up to the post, OP provides an update that's more of an edit. Okay, so a small portion of you were kind and understanding and actually gave good advice, but the rest of you are so rude. So I finally managed to get a hold of her, and she basically told me that it's over and that she no longer loves me. I managed to track her location and find out who the person she's cheating on me with is, and Dave, if you read this, screw you. I honestly can't wait to get divorced now. OP, you don't sound like the brightest banana in the bunch, but hey, I don't understand how you being upset about your wife cheating on you after you cheated makes any sense. From your own words, it doesn't exactly sound like you did anything to win her love and trust back. And yeah, to me, it doesn't make any sense as to why she stayed and why she forgave you. In all honesty, it kind of just sounds like you guys opened up the relationship and now you're sad because she has someone that she's with. But that's not a typical open relationship dynamic. I think that you're just insane. That's my genuine assessment, and my advice is that you should get divorced like everyone else is saying. And now, on to the update. So my 32 male, wife, 29 female, hasn't come home since the day I confronted her, so I went to her HR team today with proof that she was cheating with Dave. According to some close friends who work with her, HR pulled her aside after I left. She came out crying, and when Dave tried to talk to her, she pushed him aside and left for the day. This brings me so much joy. I have to have respect for myself because that guy who cheated 3 years ago doesn't exist anymore. I've quit drinking, got into great shape, and haven't felt better. Obviously, the last week has been tough, but knowing that hers is about to get so much worse brings a smile to my face. Also, she's going to be getting served sometime this week. I wish I could be there to see her face. Also, it's a bonus if Dave and her break it off. In the comments, Creamiery says, was it really necessary to get her work involved and talk to HR when it's a personal issue outside of work? I feel like you posted this to make yourself feel better, just like how you told on her to make yourself feel powerful. I'm glad you have respect for yourself now, but unfortunately, you have no one to blame for this situation except yourself. Getting revenge on her doesn't change anything. Hopefully you don't cheat on your next partner. And OP replies, well, the revenge worked because I got her transferred to a new building. She's working in the same job, but in a new place without Dave. Also, yeah, I'm blaming her. If she didn't love me, why forgive me? If she didn't want to stay, why stay? She deserves all of what's coming to her. Yes, in 3 years, you have grown into an even bigger asshole. After all, if you're not happy, no one will be. That is why you cheated, that is why you never saw the signs of her pulling away, and that's why you will try to destroy her for doing what you did to her. So yeah, you're an incredible and nice guy. Yeah, I'm shocked he thinks that he's the nice guy when he was the one who cheated. He thinks that pouring thousands of dollars will undo what he did. I hope his wife and Dave live a happy life. OP says, until this divorce is over, their life will be hell. Hell, I'm glad she cheated on you now. So you cheated on your wife and now you're upset that she did what you did, only harsher or better. I don't know. Either way, this is your karma. Next time, don't cheat. 'Cause the next chick is gonna do you even dirtier than what your wife did. This should be a lesson, but I don't think you're getting it. I wish your wife wins the divorce and she and Dave live a happy life while you stay in your misery. Seriously, dude, you were the one who cheated on her. You probably have narcissistic personality disorder because you didn't feel guilty while cheating on her. But now she's giving you the taste of your own medicine, and you can't handle that. You broke her first, and now she is breaking you. There is a difference between you cheating and her cheating. You cheated on an innocent person, she cheated on a cheater. And now you want revenge. I hope it fails for you, and she gets half of what you own. I'm rooting for your wife. You're not a better person than you were 3 years ago. You are now much worse. I usually do not take a cheater's side, but I'm taking her side because she's a victim. And now onto update 2. So those who saw my last post know what's up, and you can read it if you don't, but since the last update, my soon-to-be ex-wife lost her job, lost her boy toy, and lost a lot of friends. She showed up yesterday asking to talk, which I laughed in her face and shut the door. I know a lot of you think me a monster and a terrible guy, but I don't care what you think. Her world is collapsing, and all I can do is laugh. She earned and deserves all of it. I know I cheated 3 years ago, but she forgave me, and I had to learn to love myself again. She had a full-blown affair for months on end, and she flat out told me that she doesn't love me. I was willing to forgive her at first, but now after everything, no, I can't forgive her. I have too much respect for myself. In the comments, a deleted commenter says, "You cheated on your wife and got caught. The next time you'll be better at hiding the affair. She cheated on you and you were going to forgive her? Bullshit. You're keeping score and you think that you have the moral high ground even though you are also a cheater. She should have dumped you when you cheated. Nobody ever forgets being cheated on, so you both delayed the inevitable. I'm not saying that you can't be a better person, but thinking that you are now a better person because a few years have passed? My unsolicited advice to you is to spend some time being single and focus on being a better person. Instead of satisfying yourself, find ways to make other people's lives better, help people. And no, you sleeping with anyone will not make their life better." OP replies, "Lol, dude, I haven't had a drop of alcohol since I cheated 3 years ago. Since then, I've been a completely different person." Lol? You cheated and you were the victim who had to learn to love yourself again? Okay. People who respect themselves and others don't take joy in seeing the people they love's world collapse or laugh about it. Only hateful people with no respect or regard for other people's feelings do that. Right, lol? This guy thinks he's the victim here, and it's pathetic. He claims he's a better person than he was 3 years ago, but let's be honest here, that's a load of BS. OP says, "Lol, I very much have improved. Why would she lose friends if she was so good? Why would she cheat when at her job they don't allow it, especially with someone in the office? Why is she losing family support? Why did she lose Dave? I cheated, yes, but she forgave me, and I've done a complete 180 from the day that I cheated. And how does she repay me for the years of change and love and support and the tens of thousands of dollars I spent on her? She has an affair that's lasted months. I cheated once and have already paid for it, and now it's her turn." Since Miller Street replies to that, "This is a woman you loved, or maybe loved, quote unquote. You've been in her shoes before, yet now that she's the one trying to talk to you about it, you've laughed in her face and shut the door on her? You're also getting joy from watching her world collapse. Are you sure that you did a complete 180? It sounds to me like you did a 360, since you're still a self-absorbed guy with an overinflated ego who is getting immense pleasure by causing her pain. Except this time, you aren't doing it by cheating because you found a new method. Seriously, is there anything underneath all this shit? If you are actually just really hurt, sad, massively betrayed, and stuck in a messy grieving process because after you were the one who cheated, you stood up, took true accountability, apologized, and showed her you were sincere about it by getting sober, being honest, faithful, loyal, and loving so you could prove to her that you could be a better man, if that's the case, it's easier to understand. On the other hand, if this post is a true portrayal of yourself and how much hatred and vindictiveness you hold in your heart, then I can't get behind that because I think it's effed up. And now onto update 3. So, I effed up. I just got a call from my lawyer, and my wife found my Reddit posts with help from who I thought was a friend. My ex-friend recorded me while I was telling him about the Reddit posts. My lawyer told me that she's wanting half of everything. I don't understand how or why my friend did this, but here we are. I feel like I've been stabbed in the back twice. First from my wife, and now him. I don't know what will happen, but now I feel less confident about my divorce. I still feel like I can win though, and my lawyer says that we still stand a really good chance. Edit. I called my friend and asked him why he recorded me, and he told me that he respects women and was upset at how I was treating my wife. He told me until I go to therapy again and get some help, he doesn't want to be friends with me because I'm not the same person he became friends with. I don't know what to think anymore. In the comments, Perfect Breakfast 73 says, how much of her getting half of everything would screw you over? Percentage-wise, how much of it should morally be yours? And OP says, like all of my stuff, and I should get like 30% of hers. Shut up, OP. What are you talking about? Wait, how did she stab you in the back if you cheated first? Am I missing something? And OP says, I cheated once, years ago, and confessed immediately. She was having an affair for months. Bro, imagine sucking so bad that your friend would rather help your cheating wife over you. Did he know that you cheated prior? OP says, yeah, he did. He's been a really good friend for years. I don't understand what happened and why he betrayed me like this. Probably because he doesn't like cheaters? Then why was he friends with me? He probably liked different aspects of you, but you gloating about your actions to random strangers probably just did him in. Veloxiraptor says, you feel betrayed? Huh, maybe think about that the next time you have a one-time drunken fling. I hope she sees this post too and takes everything she can just for your comments here alone. OP says, wow, I messed up once, but it's okay for her to mess up hundreds of times and lie behind my back? Yeah, you should have forgave her like she forgave you. I hope you're sad and miserable. You deserve it for what you did to that poor woman. OP says, I was willing to forgive her, but she doesn't want to be forgiven. Also, what did I do to that poor woman? It's a good question, OP. Don't know what you did to that poor woman, really. All these essays you're writing really has convinced me that you've done nothing wrong here, dude. You're just... You're such a good person. I can't get over that. I need 100% of my stuff and 30% of hers. Can you back it up with some receipts, please, OP? I'm trying to believe you here. I'm trying my best to be on your side, but it's not working. And now onto the final update, titled, My Ex-Wife Got the House. So the last few months have not gone well for me. Ever since my friend betrayed me, everything has gone downhill. I basically owe my wife half of everything. Because I got my wife fired, and because I posted everything on Reddit, the judge ruled that I had essentially ruined her reputation, so she got the house because it's paid off, and she has nowhere else to live. My lawyer tried to get the judge to rule for us to sell the house, but the judge won't budge. My lawyer says that I should try to sue my friend for defamation because my wife now has my posts and has been sending my Reddit posts to all of my friends and family. Basically, everyone has distanced themselves from me. I don't know if I'd win that lawsuit because they have proof that I did post it. I don't know what to do from here, but I think I have a lot of self-reflecting to do. Oh, Also, a lot of you are right that my friend has started to hook up with my ex-wife, so there's that. I'll let you guys know if I want to go through with suing my friend, but as of right now, that's all I've got to update you guys with. In the comments, Wielder of Aphorism says, "As my mother says, you did this to yourself. Do better in the future." And OP replies, "I don't feel like I did this to myself though. I feel like I was the one that was wronged. I know now though that I need to work more on myself, but I don't know how because I thought I already did." Remember when you laughed in her face and slammed the door when she asked to talk? I bet you're regretting that now, aren't ya? And OP says, "I regret cheating the first time. There was no love in it, and I don't even remember who she was. I regret not divorcing sooner. I regret showing my friend my posts. I also regret going to therapy with her. Like, what a waste of time and money." The professional victim game is strong with this one. And OP says, "Why does everyone see my wife as the victim? Explain to me why it's okay for her to waste my time, money, and love on her, and it's okay for her to have an affair. I know I cheated, but she forgave. I'm honestly trying to understand why it gives her the right to screw me over." AMW says, "It's not defamation if it's true and he has you on a recording. Just move on. You cheated, so she cheated, and then you admitted out loud on a recording that you purposely got her fired because you were being petty. I would have told on your ass too. I get that you're hurt, but damn, you ruined her career and then bragged about it. These are the repercussions of those actions. What did you really think would happen?" Edit, also, why would you expect her to get over it when you clearly haven't gotten over it? Lol? This guy takes total lack of self-awareness, throws it in with his cheating and other bad habits, rolls around in the resulting shit pile, and somehow thinks that he has been wronged. There are doctors and medications for this level of delusion. "I cheated on my wife, and then she cheated on me, but her cheating was worse because she had a full-blown affair. Also, my cheating doesn't count because she forgave me. It also doesn't count because the man that I was 3 years ago no longer exists. I cannot be held responsible for the actions of the man that I was because I lost weight?" Honestly, the self-insight, it's just mind-boggling. Sarcasm. I don't know what to say about that one besides, what an entertaining read, OP. Thank you so much for that. I hope your delusion carries you far and wide into the world that you're going to get into post-divorce. Very much best of luck to you, OP. It's a situation where it's like, you are beyond help. There is no salvaging you. I think we just need to remove your brain and put someone else's in there because yours is defective, mate. Don't know what to tell ya. Glad things are going well for your ex-wife. I know that her cheating is like, yeah, it's not acceptable, but like, why did you guys stay together? I feel like you were pretty much divorced when you cheated and she stayed with you. She was kind of just waiting for a reason to leave, and now she's found it. I think you guys should just leave it at that, honestly. Seems like you're in a very much checkmate situation with no way out, so have fun with that one. Our next post is by user Where's My Room, titled, "I've, female 25, returned from a month-long trip, and my roommate, female 22, has moved all her things into my room and has been living there with no intention of switching back. Hi there. I'm writing this in a throwaway because, to be honest, I never thought that I need to post here, but what can you do? So I moved into this flat about 8 months ago. I met Lana online on a roommate website, and we clicked well. She's a bit younger, but seemed mature. We quickly agreed to be roommates. Both of us were under time constraints to find a place to live, but have got on really well so far, up until this. Our flat is a 2-bedroom, and to be frank, my room is clearly the better one. It's bigger and has built-in wardrobes. When looking for the flat, I found the place first on my own and put down a deposit to take it off the market while I found another roommate. The flat was perfect, cheap rent, and my aunt manages the property, so I was keen to snap it up before anyone else did. The area that it's in is popular, so I wasn't really worried about not finding someone to room with. Because of the above, and that I was there first, I took the bigger room, naturally. When showing potential roommates, including Lana, around, I was sure to show the smaller room and say, "This would be your room." We moved in 8 months ago, and it's been happy families. Never heard Lana complain about her room. And because I have about 6 times the wardrobe space that she does, I told her that she's welcome to store her off-season clothes in there, or whatever she wants to store, as long as she's not popping in every morning to get dressed. She was happy with this. Just over a month ago, I went traveling. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of having people in my room, but I told Lana that if she has someone stay, like her sister or friends from home, they could sleep in my bed. She said thanks, and as she's been such a great roommate and rarely has guests except her boyfriend, I didn't worry at all. I came back yesterday. I was exhausted from flight and traveling and just wanted to shower and sleep. As I walked in, Lana was in the living room with her boyfriend. We said hello and hugged, had a very quick catch-up and blah blah. Then I dragged my suitcase to my room, opened the door, and found it full of stuff that was not mine. I kinda yelled, "What the fuck?" and briefly thought that I was so jet-lagged that I was confused, but opened the door to Lana's room and saw all of my stuff. I walked into the living room and asked Lana what was going on, and she said, "Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, we put my stuff in your room because it's bigger, and you weren't here, and you said that I could use it." I was honestly so tired I could have passed out then and there, so I probably wasn't in the best state, and told her to move it all back immediately. She said they were in the middle of making dinner, and I looked tired, so I should have a sleep. Her boyfriend then said, "And anyway, you pay the same rent, so isn't it fair that you both get the big room at some point?" I was getting really frustrated and could feel tears welling up. I was hysterical from lack of sleep, so I just said, "We'll deal with this tomorrow, and it's getting moved back." And then I went to sleep in not my room. I've woken up now, and I'm so pissed off. Lana's at work, so I can't talk to her, but what should I do when she's home? I feel like this is going to turn into an argument. I don't think it'll be as simple as, "Okay, let's swap now that you're home." In the comments, someone asks, "Does Tom have a set of keys to the flat?" And OP says, "There's only 2 keys to the flat, mine and Lana's. I gave mine to my mum while I was away in case she had needed to pop in for me, but she never did. Lana has one, and she says she didn't give it to Tom at any point. She just buzzed him in. I'm going to speak to my aunt and see what she reckons about changing the locks. I need to verify it with her beforehand anyway. I don't see that there is any way that Tom could have a copy, but you never know. Is the roommate's name on the lease?" OP says, "Her name is on the contract, equal to mine. The deposit that I paid was a holding fee to take the property off the market, which was later deducted from my half of the actual deposit, so she doesn't owe me any money. I'm hoping the boyfriend will not be round when she comes home. She's been a reasonable person for the 7 months prior to this, so I can't help but think that he's influenced her a bit. I'm very curious to know how much he's been staying over." Another commenter asks if the lease has a limit on guests, and OP says, "He is 100% not moving in after school. Not a hope in hell. I advertised for 1 roommate. I wrote, 'No couples' in capital letters on the ad. It is not happening. Our lease has a guest clause, something like no longer than 3 weeks over a 3-month period. I'm not sure. I'll need to look at it. It's likely that both of our boyfriends have stayed longer than that over the 8 months, and the landlord has never had an issue with them. If he starts staying every night, I will be bringing this up though." Sheepuddle says, "She moved your things out when you weren't there. You're off work now. Just swap things back straight away. Start with stripping the beds and change the linen over. I wouldn't leave it till tomorrow. It normalizes the situation. If she comes home whilst you're in the middle of it, just keep going or ask her to help you. Her boyfriend should keep out of it. I assume he's lived there full time over the last month, and he's seeing it as their flat now." OP says, "Yep, this is my worry. I still paid rent for this month that I was away, so I have every right to return to the same flat as I left. It's really crappy that you have to do this, but I think you should make your space completely off limits in the future. It is really strange of her to just move everything into your room, no matter how long you were gone. No normal person should do this. Move your stuff back. This isn't even a discussion. You found the place, you made it clear the smaller room was hers. Put a lock on the door and say that this isn't a discussion. It sucks that she screwed herself over, but that's her problem, not yours. Edit. Also, if the boyfriend has been staying over all this time, nip that shit in the bud. You signed up for 1 housemate, not 2. If he cares so much, then he can go rent a place with her. Extra edits, be upfront and tell her in the future that she needs to A, ask because you didn't give her permission to your room, and B, if she wasn't happy with the deal, she should have said something or not rented this place, not this weird passive-aggressively show of dominance. Also, have the discussion without him there, as he'll obviously side with her, and you'll feel ganged up on, making you more likely to crack. Also, he doesn't live there. He's your guest as well as hers, so it's none of his damned business. This story to me is very much reminiscent of that one story that we covered in the past, where it was a rental in a college dorm room with all women, and yet one of the women, out of 3, moved her boyfriend/husband into the place, who she didn't tell her parents that she was married or with this guy, then passive-aggressively forced the rest of the roommates that she had been living with, including the OP in that situation, to just accept that the husband was living there, even though he's a goddamn creep. It's crazy how many women will abuse the imbalanced power dynamic of having a man in their living situations to force an unfair kind of trade that the other person they're screwing over obviously cannot fight at the time. Yeah, I'm gonna screw you over here, and here's my boyfriend who's much bigger and stronger than you, who's also going to defend me tooth and nail and physically aggress you. That's gonna make me seem like the good guy here. That's gonna make you agree with me even more, because you'll see that I have a great point. I'm completely on board with you talking it out in this situation, OP, but she's come from a very much bad faith position to begin with. I don't know how much talking it out can really solve this situation. For me, it would be a deal breaker, and especially since your auntie is the one managing the property, you can use your advantage against her stupid advantage of having a man there to get her evicted. I feel like she more than deserves it here. Back to the post, we have an edit. I've taken the advice of most people on this thread and moved my stuff back. It's taken hours and I'm knackered, but I think if I left it another night, it would be a real problem. I sent her a text when I was almost done, in case she kicked up a shitstorm and came home, to say, "Hi Lana, hope you're having a nice day at work. Just to let you know, I'm moving my stuff back into my room. Didn't want you coming home and walking into the wrong one." Smiley face. Yes, I'm petty. I'll be talking to her when she gets in because this is out of character for her, to the point of it being bizarre. She's never been anything but a model roommate, so I'm going to give her a chance before we're donezo. If she wants to be reasonable and have a chat about rent portions, I'm happy to do that. She's never had a problem with rent before, and honestly, I've never had uneven rent amounts in any place that I've ever lived, whether I had a bigger room or a smaller one, but a lot of people here are saying that it's the norm, so I'm open to talking about it if she's not ridiculous. Edit 2, Lana should be home in a bit. I'll update when I can. Edit 3, hi everyone. I've got about 1 million messages asking for an update, but last night was a bit mad and I'm still pretty jet lagged, so sorry, but I went to sleep. Anyways, here we go. So as you know, I texted Lana to tell her that I moved my stuff back. She didn't reply to me. Fine, whatever, but she didn't kick off, so I figured we were okay. I told my aunt what had happened, who was as baffled as all of you, and I told her that it was probably all sorted, but just keeping her in the loop. I also told my boyfriend, who works about 5 minutes down the road. He offered to come round in case Lana's boyfriend came round, but I told him not to because then we're ganging up on Lana. He insisted on going for a coffee, quote-unquote, with his mate a couple roads away in case we needed backup, which is a bit ridiculous, but very cute of him. God, I love Aussie vernacular, this is great. So I did get myself a glass of wine while waiting for Lana, not because I was nervous, I just like wine, and she came home. I was sat in the living room and gave her a very cold hi when she walked in. She sort of froze, bag in hand, and her eyes darted between me/not her/our bedroom door. She blurted out, "Did you do it?" And I said, "What, move the rooms back?" "Yeah, of course." And her eyes went all wide and she dropped her bag and ran into the bathroom. I could hear her talking on the phone, so I was like, "Yippee! I guess Tom's coming round. Fun!" I heard the door unlock, and I was about to go full Hulk on how psycho she is when she came out of the door and stood between our bedrooms. Their doors are adjacent, and she just stared between them both, breathing heavily. It was really odd. Then I noticed that she was crying and getting a bit panicky, so I asked what was going on. She burst into tears and said, "Oh my God, he's going to kill me," and just sobbed. So yeah, it was the boyfriend's idea completely, as a lot of us suspected. She's honestly always been a perfect roommate, which is kinda why I came to this sub. If she was, generally an asshole, I would have known how to act, if you know what I mean. Anyway, Lana has a bit of a breakdown, and it turns out piece of shit Tom has always been a bit of a piece of shit. Very jealous, which I always saw hints of, but Lana never mentioned, so I didn't, and has amped up his piece of shitness while I've been away. When I left, he just finished school and basically moved in unannounced, and when she'd mentioned he hasn't been home in days, he'd give her the, "What, don't you love me? I treat you so well. You're so selfish, blah blah shit," and refused to move. She showed me the text that he sends her. Absolutely horrific stuff. Things like, "Ring me in the next 5 minutes or we're over. Send me a picture of you at your desk with something showing today's date so I know you're at work." Just abusive stuff. On to the room. As we guessed, he moved it. He did it while she was at work, which is actually a bit gross thinking of him going through my stuff, and I'm considering somehow implying that I have crabs or something he could catch just to make him squirm a bit. But I'll work on it. Lana came home and said, "What are you doing?" He made out that it was just temporary and that I wouldn't mind. Such a gentleman for speaking on my behalf. And he would move it back, and he was doing it for her, and she was so selfish, etc. When it got to a few days before I came back, Lana suggested moving it back, and he completely denied that he said that, and told her that it was her idea to move it, and he only did what she told him, but now it's staying, or she would be sorry. So basically Tom's a prick, and Lana sobbed and apologized and cried, and I fed her wine. She didn't want to see Tom, who obviously assumed he lived there now, so I texted him from her phone saying our landlady, my aunt, was coming round for an inspection and staying for dinner after with my family, and he couldn't come over tonight. He sent a lot of begging, whiny texts, and then went on the offensive and called Lana a liar. So I rang my aunt, explained everything, and had her write us a fake landlord email mentioning the visit and how she was looking forward to fajitas, because she's an absolute babe and I make good packet fajitas, which we forwarded on to Tom. He left her alone for the rest of the night, apart from a few texts. I'm not entirely sure what we do about Tom. Lana sounds like she wants to break up, judging from her crying and screaming, "I hate him! I hate him! I hate him!" into her whine. I think she's scared too, though. I checked in with her and he doesn't have a key, so that's a relief. I told my aunt everything and she said she's happy to ban him from the flat, but Lana would need to break up with him first and get all that sorted. Thanks everyone for the advice. I know it wasn't the most popcorny update, but hopefully Lana will be okay, and we're going to be doing some girly shit this week and avoiding Tom, and yeah, God knows what'll happen. And now, on to the update. Hi everyone, it's been a busy month since my last post, and I logged back into this account out of curiosity, and I saw quite a few people messaged me requesting an update. So here we are. Sorry it took so long, but things have calmed down now. So shortly after my last post, Lana broke up with Tom. She was quite scared to do it because he's a psycho, and it took 2 weeks between my last post and the actual breakup. During that time, she didn't let him come round to see her. Luckily, she remembered that Tom had never had chickenpox as a kid, so we pretended my nephew had caught chickenpox and had to stay with us because my brother's wife had never had it also and couldn't risk getting shingles. It worked, luckily, and he stayed away. She told her family and close friends about what he'd been like in case he contacted them to get in touch with her and lied about what had happened, and then texted him saying she wanted to break up. Well, he blew the F up. Called her every name under the sun, switched back to apologizing and saying she was the love of his life, then she'd never find someone like him, then he would die without her, then he wanted to kill her, then they were soulmates. It was insane. He started messaging me too, telling me that I was an evil bear who had ruined his perfect wife. Lol, okay then. And as predicted, her family and friends got messages too. We both turned our phones off to ignore it and just watched TV. Later, I briefly switched mine on, where I had a lot of messages from my friends telling me to block some guy on my social media. It was Tom, calling me every imaginative combination of the C word he could think of all over my public Instagram page. There were even a few racial slurs, which was odd because we're both white, but okay. Lana had already blocked him on everything, but silly me forgot to make my Insta private. The next day, he rang Lana's office. She was so embarrassed, it was awful, to tell her that he was driving down to our flat. She rang me, and I rang my aunt, who you remember manages the property, who told us that it was time to call the police. We filed a report about Tom, and they said to update us on the situation. In the UK, you need to go to court to actually get a restraining order, so we haven't as such, but the evidence is all there and documented if we need to go that far. The police rang Tom, at our request, told him they'd seen the messages, and then told him to turn his car around, because if he turned up at our door, he would be arrested. Police officers here are amazing, can I just say. Tom managed to shit himself hard enough to not show up after that. So we were fine for a week, and then the post came. Tom started sending letters, threats and soppy I love you shit, flowers, and then a pizza that we had to pay for. We were actually hungry, so we ate it. He signed us up to a magazine subscription. It was bizarre. We went to the police again. They filed everything, but Lana didn't want to go to court. I don't blame her. She was incredibly stressed by the whole thing. So 2 weeks ago, I took my aunt and my mother out to dinner. I told them both about the situation, and my goddess of an aunt had an idea. She manages about 30 properties, not just the one that we live at, as had a few that were unoccupied now, with school finishing. She told me that she would show us around all the 2 bedrooms that she had, and we could live in any of them for the same rent that we pay now, and just transfer over our deposit and fees, as long as there were no damages to deduct, and we helped do a deep clean to get it ready for the next tenant. We found one within a 5-minute drive that's just as lovely, and, to anyone concerned about the previous rent disputes, has equally sized bedrooms. So we moved, which is why the last 2 weeks have been manic, but we're settled in now. Tom has been informed that we have moved, because the stuff he's sent since has been returned. Lana and I are completely no contact with him, and anyone who visits us is sure not to pass our address to Tom. Also, I apologized to Lana about the issue with paying the same amounts of rent. She said she had never had a problem with it, and said that's how she had always done it through uni and with other roommates. She refused to take any money from me, but I've decided that I'll be funding the weekly flat wine sessions for the future. It's been a long month, and even though my traveling tan has faded, things are great now. Thanks for all of your advice before, guys, even the ones that I didn't agree with. And let's all pray to baby Jesus that I have a calmer living situation from now on. In the comments, Aspidities87 says, "Wow, what a fantastic outcome for everyone involved. I mean, obviously trauma from Tom's idiocy and harassment, but now that F-wit is on police notice, you and Lana have a nice new flat with equal footing, and it sounds like you formed a real bond over this. Whereas your previous post was typical roommate entitlement issues combined with a shit boyfriend. It both escalated and got better. Much luck to you and Lana living in the future. You've been a great friend to her. Your aunt definitely deserves some good wine sessions too." OP says, "We're taking my aunt out for dinner next month." Tom is terrifying as hell. That man was going to escalate, and I'm so relieved and surprised, honestly, that the police actually seem to do their job. But the aunt in the story is the real MVP. Goddess of an aunt indeed. We all need a badass aunt like this. I hope to be a badass aunt like this, except I want their lives to be so phenomenal and perfect that they never need me to be. I discovered just the other night that my brothers all think that I'm this type of badass sister. We're all in our 30s, but I'm the only one with children so far. I was chuckling and confused as to why my brother's partners had all confessed that they were most nervous about meeting me out of our whole family. They were even less nervous about meeting our mother. As it turns out, my brothers all portray Big Sister Wonder Wife as the family gatekeeper and their protector. My brothers all being these 6-foot-plus tall, burly, bearded men, and I'm 5'3" when I'm wearing my shoes. None of them have ever said as much to me, but apparently they've been telling people for years that I am the one who would burn the world down for them. They're not wrong. It was just a strange moment to hear them say out loud that they recognize who I am. My brothers are not the most loquacious, lol. The Kitten Patrol says, "How many of us called that it was Lana's boyfriend before hitting update 3? So glad that she had the support to get away from him. And honestly, I'm glad he decided to switch rooms like that, because otherwise the catalyst for Lana showing how terrible he was might not have come until too late for her to get away first try." Oh yeah, when OP was saying that it was out of character, bizarre behavior, and the boyfriend was magically there when shit went down, I was like, 100% the asshole boyfriend started this. And as you can tell from my comments, I lack experience because I didn't pick up on that one. Now I would like to say it would be a terrible idea to evict Lana in this situation because you are just damning her to seclusion with some abusive predator like this guy. That's an L in my books. I apologize for such a harsh and heavy-handed approach to the situation, but hey, glad this guy showed his hand, showed who he was, and OP was there to protect Lana from him, and also to protect herself. Thank God Auntie stepped in. Thank you, Auntie. Very cool.